Let me look. Yes, I have Liz McIntosh.
All right. Liz, you got public comments.
All right, good morning. Thank you. Liz McIntosh, Junction City. Over the past 3 years, the Junction City community has worked tirelessly to combat a mining operation that's been operating outside of its conditional use permit for years with no oversight from the county. After repeatedly hearing from concerned citizens, including the school community, the North Fork Range, the GOMPA, reviewing loads of documents and public record requests and formal complaints, the Planning Commission unanimously chose to revoke the permit. After discovering that the license holder had appealed to have the decision reviewed by your board, we were told the meeting would be happening today. Once again, we set forth to rally our community to speak up about this issue. I know I, for one, took time off of work. And on Thursday of last week, I reached out to see if I could drop off over 70 pages of public comment and was told the item was pulled from the agenda. I'm sure you can imagine my disappointment and others, as this has just continued for so long. I'm speaking today because I don't understand why we are waiting. I feel it's a contrast to our ordinance regarding appeals, and I'm urging you to place this item on your next agenda. County Code Section 16.52.030 states that, quote, upon the receipt of an appeal, the appropriate hearing body shall schedule a hearing, such hearing to occur within 30 days of the receipt of the appeal. The last possible date that the appeal could have been filed in accordance with this ordinance would have been April 15th, and even today's meeting would have already exceeded the 30-day limitation. When this does appear before you, you're going to hear over and over again what I'm asking you now. Why aren't we following our own laws? I posed this question to County Council last week, but I haven't heard anything back as of yet. I just want to thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope to see this at your next meeting.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anybody else on Zoom function?
Yes, we have Amanda Berger.
Hi, thank you. You said my name correctly. That's great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I am also a concerned citizen of Junction City, and I just want to support everything that Liz McIntosh just spoke to about this issue that we've been having with the illegal mining operation next door to the Junction City School. And I wanted to ask again about that code, Trinity County Code Section 16.52.030, about having to meet about a hearing, an appeal within 30 days. And I would like to get maybe an explanation in person as to why that did not happen, and how if it didn't happen within the 30 days, if that means that the appeal is now null and void, and how, and if there are any allowances to allow for the continuance that I guess was filed by the company. Where do I find that in the Trinity County Code to allow that? Because we have not found where that would be. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
John Warple.
Yes, I'm here. I'm John Warple from Weaverville, and this is to the board and members of the board. The Trinity River Recovery Program is now circulating a scoping document that is describing alter flows to the Trinity River scheduled to begin in December. Additionally, I know the Trinity Management Council is scheduled to meet in a couple weeks, and I would ask that the board members who are on the TMC perhaps could give us their thoughts on the proposal currently being circulated. The end date for comment is June 18th. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
I have no new chats and no raised hands. Is there anyone in the lobby with public comment?
Good morning, Jay Gross and Chris Hayford. First, I would like to ask, humbly from the chair, if item 5.3 could please, for the love of God, be moved up so that Trinity County Board of Supervisors and Planning Department is not wrong one more entire day of my life waiting for that. And then I also have a public comment. Our cannabis program has grossly lost its way. And from hearing comments about 4 minutes ago from other people talking about the planning department and city conditional use permits and stuff, it doesn't sound like it's the cannabis department that's lost its way. It sounds like the planning department's lost its way. The biggest issue that I'm seeing is that there is no staff and that there's also a gross inability to operate. A quick example would be that, as most of you guys know, our conditional use permit that took 3 years was approved on April 8th, which is amazing. Took about 4 to 5 weeks after that for Kim Hunter to respond to the email to the state giving us local authorization to move forward with state licensing. As of last week, we had just about finished with the state when they responded to us that the document, I can't remember the name of it, the document that is signed by the chair of the Planning Commission stating that our CUP is approved and whatnot, did not have the correct APN number on it. It wasn't even a typo. They had put an APN number for Lewiston on our conditional use permit, which is extra confusing because I think there's only been a couple ever issued in the history of our program for cannabis. So we still don't have our county license, which has now cut the season in half, which means that what should have been one of the 3 largest tax bills to Trinity County, bigger than Trinity Lumber, is now cut in half for the year because our planning department was not able to literally put an APN number and make sure before the board signed it that that's operational. So I don't know if I should find out who owns the property in Lewiston, see if I can go grow an acre of weed on it this year, and then maybe when you guys fix it, we could go back to Hayfork where we don't have neighbors and can grow cannabis. The grading ordinance, if you don't hear back in 90 days, you're just approved. Most contractors here now say, we'll schedule you 90 days out because you're never going to hear back and you'll just be approved. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, if you don't hear back in X number of days, you're approved. We shouldn't be having inspections and these annual renewals where they go through everything and nitpick when nothing's changed. It should either be every year they check everything out, and if you're good, you move forward, or we should have a department that's going out and checking. And if there's something out of compliance, obviously you have to fix that before your renewal happens. Let's use some sense. Let's get this whole thing straightened out so we can all move forward. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Terry Mines, Junction City. Good day. My name is Terry Mines. I'm the owner of a 5.5 acre property located in Douglas City at 30661 Highway 3. In 2018, I applied for a rezone of 4 parcels with a CUP to develop a cannabis distribution facility on one of the parcels. When my project came before the Board of Supervisors and for consideration in 2020, the sitting Board of Supervisors ignored the recommendation of the Planning Director, Kim Hunter, and denied my project despite the fact that there was no legal findings to support a denial. The County Council who was representing me at the hearing was Amanda Urahammer, and unfortunately for this county, she made no recommendation to the board upon the denial that adequate legal findings to support denial had to be made. As a result, I filed a lawsuit against the County of Trinity due to lack of any findings to support that denial. More troubling is the fact that I've submitted 2 settlement offers to the county but have received no response on those offers. The first offer was made on March 19th to your attorney, Amanda Urahammer. No response was received, and it appears that that offer was not even given to the board for consideration, as I cannot find it was placed on the agenda for consideration. The second offer was made on April 28th, and again, no response has been received and it has not been placed on your agenda for consideration. Ms. Urahammer has, as your attorney, has the duty to convey these offers to you, but it appears that she's failed to do so. This places the county at great risk. I was back in court on May 28th with my attorney for a court-ordered settlement conference with Judge Boatman. It was a date that has been set for approximately 2 months, yet your attorney, Amanda Urhammer, failed to appear and instead sent in an uninformed attorney from her office, and he told the court, when asked about her whereabouts, that she was on vacation. The court then just ordered the county to consider my latest offer and make a counteroffer, preferably a global counteroffer that would address all 3 lawsuits that I have currently pending against the county, and to do its job and stop wasting the county's time. This was not the first time Ms. Urhammer has failed to appear in court. She failed to appear on March 16th at all. In fact, no one from Prentice Long appeared in court that day to represent the county. The judge also told my attorney on May 28th to file motions to compel against the county regarding documents that were requested back in January. You should also be aware that the county and its attorneys have been ordered to report to the court and my attorney every Friday the status of production of documents that were requested over a year now ago pursuant to Public Records Act request to the county. That's my second lawsuit. Many of you know that I was once on this very board and that I recommended that the law firm Prentice & Long be removed as counsel for Trinity County. The actions I have described, failing to advise this board appropriately, which leads to not just one but numerous lawsuits, is the reason I made that request when I was on the board, and it's reasons I'm making it again. The citizens of Trinity County deserve adequate legal representation. If any of you would like to call and discuss my concerns or my lawsuits with the county, you can give me a call.
Thank you for your comments. Emma, any additional comments from Zoom?
I have no new chats and no raised hands. Is there anyone else in the lobby with public comment? No, we have no more.
All right, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, if I may, to the gentleman that has the question on TMC, if you would wait around until we do our board reports. And then I would ask if the board has the will to see if Margaret wants to comment on why the mining was delayed, the mining appeal.
Oh, right now, I would have to double check on that. It's not agenda, but I believe the reason is, and again, I want to confirm it before I give this as a final answer, was that a request for a continuance was made based on good cause finding, which is allowed. So I'll double check that.
By the applicant.
Right now.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
All right. And with that, we will move on to presentations. Clerk of the Board, item 2.1, receive a presentation from Luann Kitts regarding her master's project, Trinity County Needs and Opportunities Assessment with special input from Trinity County students, no fiscal impact. I'm going to assume she's coming in on the Zoom or in person? Oh, awesome.
Hi, I'm Luann Kitts.
All right, you have the floor then.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me today. Today I will speak about, oh, can somebody pull, thank you. Is there a way that I can switch the slide?
Just let me know.
Just say slide. Okay. Today I will be speaking about the Trinity County Needs and Opportunities Assessment. So my name is Luann Kitts, formerly known as Luann Vandergrift, and I grew up in Coffee Creek. Slide. About 3 years ago, I began a distance learning program at Chico State for a Master's of Social Work. I knew I wanted to give back to my community that raised me when I was doing this project, so I decided to write my master's thesis on Trinity County. Luckily, Sarah Supahan was there to help me. She's a Trinity County Office of Education Superintendent of Schools. She was a wonderful mentor, by the way, and I also want to thank the Trinity County community for all of the support they've given me on this research. So we came up with the Trinity County Needs and Opportunities Assessment. And now that I've completed my master's degree in social work, Sarah advised me to share my research with you all, and it may be informative for you. So today I will begin with an explanation of a historical economic cycle of boom and bust in the raw materials industry. Next, I will review data collected from high schools, youth focus groups, and last, I will share a vision for the future of the North State. Let's start with my research conclusions. About every 75 years in Trinity County, there's a raw materials boom and bust. This boom and bust is fueled by a lack of equity in rural policy and the lack of diversity in the Trinity County economy. This has created a landscape of poverty that has shaped the current deficit in economic opportunities, access to resources, poor health outcomes, and lack of infrastructure in Trinity County. After holding youth focus groups countywide, I learned that youth view the collateral damage of these barriers as dichotomies that drive community and economic stagnation. This is a social justice issue requiring the participation of the entire community, especially the next generation, to be seen as stakeholders who influence policies and programs in the community. So now I will explain the economic boom and bust cycle with some examples of raw materials industries that many of us are familiar with. Let's begin with the gold rush. It was first seen here. Then the post-World War II timber economy. Next, the construction of the Trinity Dam. This was a mini boom, but definitely a boom. And last, the cannabis industry. Slide, please. Okay, so the common thread between all of these raw materials industry booms is shown up here on this raw materials cycle. So I'm gonna just give you a demonstration of how this cycle works. You can follow along on the PowerPoint, and I'll use the gold rush. So in 1848, gold was found in Readings Creek. Then it began being extracted all over Trinity County, and the job market grew. Gold fever happened. There was a huge influx of people from all over America and some international places like China. And just to show you the numbers on this, in 1850, there was 1,635 residents in Trinity County, and in 1860, there was 5,125 residents. The population almost tripled in 10 years. I just want to point out that this influx of people displaced many Native Americans. Not only displaced them, but there was lots of genocide and other negative things that happened to that community. So local businesses thrived due to this economic boom, right? And so this gold mining was lucrative, but was really hard on the environment, as many of these raw material extraction industries are. And so the gold mining especially affected the waterways. So in 1884, the first state environmental regulation was imposed. It labeled mining as a nuisance to society and was prohibited. The mining industry and population declined as policy enforcement increased and gold decreased in Trinity County. The people who left did, leaving poverty in their wake. The gold rush led to economic and population fluctuations that led to instability in the job market and began a cycle of generational poverty. The community waited in poverty for the next boom to hit. I want to point out that through these economic boom and busts, many local people have been displaced and economically marginalized, especially the Native American tribes. But I can point out other things. So if you look at the Trinity Dam, the whole town of Stringtown was moved outside of it to Trinity Center. And the same was repeated in Ruth Lake. When Ruth Lake was put in, the town of White Stump was moved outside of it too. These are just a few examples, but there has been a lot of question for social equity in the way that these policies have been carried out. So where are we now on this cycle? Well, the raw materials industry that I see is cannabis. In 2016, Proposition 64 was passed. Amongst other things, this was an environmental regulation. Currently in Trinity County, population is on the decline. According to the U.S. Census, in 2010, there were 13,785 people in Trinity County. According to the World Population Projections, this year, 2021, Trinity County is projected to have 11,721 people. So it's almost a 2,500 person decrease in the last 11 years. So what does this cycle show us about Trinity County's future? If this cycle is repeated, the economy will start to decline, plummeting Trinity County deeper into poverty. I believe this is already starting to happen. Let's take, for example, the site, county health rankings. This site compares data across counties in California on factors such as social and economic factors. For example, children in poverty, length of life, it looks at premature death rates, and last, health behaviors, like alcohol-impaired driving deaths. These are just a few. There's many, many factors that they take into account to get their numbers. So in 2014, Trinity County was ranked 49 out of 58 counties. This year, Trinity County is ranked 58 out of 58 counties as the most unhealthy county in California. Many of these health outcomes can be directly related to poverty factors, showing the importance of having a stable economy. So the question is, how can a healthy economy be created in this area? Slide, please. Now that you have my data research conclusions, let's look at the data from the youth focus groups. The students were asked a variety of questions about barriers and strengths in their communities and visions they have for the future. The following are themes that arose from the data and correlating quotes from the students, which can be seen on the PowerPoint. And I didn't say this yet, I'm sorry, but so I was able to hold youth focus groups in all 5 high schools in Trinity County. So I went to Hayfork High School, I went to Hayfork High School, I went to Trinity High School, I went to Alps View High School, and I did Zoom with Southern Trinity High School and with Rise Academy. So these are really broad. I got a lot of broad data sets from across the counties. So the following are themes that arose from the data and correlating quotes from students, which can be seen on the PowerPoint. Strong sense of community. Youth in Trinity County identified an incredibly close and deep connection to other youth and families in the region. One student spoke about the importance of community dinners and how she views her community as her family. Another student spoke about how everywhere you go, you'll see someone that you know. Slide, please. Natural helping networks. Youth clearly articulated that people in the community rely on their family and neighbors for a wide range of support due to geographic isolation from basic resources and lack of government involvement. One student spoke about how after the fires, the community came together to help neighbors in need. Limited economic opportunities. Observed in the data, few businesses offer well-paying jobs or jobs in general, creating poverty themes like the high rates of student homelessness and food insecurity. One student shared her personal story of homelessness. And another one spoke about how one family owns all the businesses in the community, and if they don't like you, you can't get a job. Slide, please. Limited infrastructure. Repeatedly demonstrated in the data was a lack of access to health care and limited basic infrastructure, creating significant barriers but also ensuring autonomy. Students spoke about the terrible conditions of the roads and how difficult it was to get to school or to a grocery store. They talked about the difficulty of getting emergency care in outlying communities. Many have to be helicoptered in or out. Suspicion of outsiders. Repeated throughout Trinity County was the concept of legacy families, people who are long-standing pillars of Trinity County, who have social capital, and outsiders who lack social equity and are not admitted into these inner circles. One student shared about how these close-knit circles further outcast others, continuing this idea of isolation. Slide please. Cannabis industry. Discovered in the data, the cannabis industry drives the local economy. While many families participate in this industry, it does not allow them ability to thrive. One student spoke about how her parents are only able to spend their grow money on living necessities, not allowing them to save for her future. Another student shared about how they use weed as a therapist because it's easier to come by than mental health supports. Isolation. The data has shown that isolation is an underlying topic embedded in the previous 6 themes. The remoteness, the beauty, and solitude found in nature are coveted, but also a barrier to obtaining basic resources, economic stability, and access to society at large, creating a heavy reliance on community supports. This isolation breeds a lack of individual experience outside of Trinity County that fuels attitudes and behaviors unique to this area. One student spoke about how her social anxiety is so bad that when she goes to Reading looking for an item at a grocery store or whatever, and she can't find it, She will leave instead of getting that item because she's so uncomfortable around people she doesn't know. Another student spoke about how her father is really concerned with government interference to the extent that he will not apply for health care for her because he's afraid of government involvement. Slide, please. As students outlined barriers in the broader community, barriers arose in schools also. School culture at the various schools was significantly different, likely due to a variety of factors, including the school personnel, the students themselves, as well as the economic and resource variations across the county. Let's begin with Rise County. Students spoke about limited connection to the community and peers because stigma followed them. They shared that their households were unstable as their parents used drugs so extensively that there wasn't food in the cupboards sometimes. Multiple children had been or are in foster care. And I heard stories of incarceration from these students. Trinity High School. Students' displacement into portable classrooms due to mold and wanting more freedoms on campus were their biggest concerns. Students advocated for healthier lunch options. Alps View High School. Reports of harassment need to be taken more seriously by staff from students at Trinity High School. Students spoke about their reliance on drugs due to lack of mental health supports. And they shared that it's difficult in this community to find a job because stigma follows them. Hayfork High School. Student suicide, loneliness, and lack of mental health supports was a recurrent theme with this population. Students reported needing more help for the LGBT community at school. They shared that there's no access to substance abuse treatment because it's in Weaverville and Redding. And they shared that they had a real fear of leaving Hayfork due to social anxiety. Last, but definitely not least, Southern Trinity High School. I've had the pleasure of working with two amazing young women, Riley and Lena, who are here to represent their school and community and share their opinions about the barriers and visions they have for their community. So they're on Zoom, and I'm not sure how that works with them talking.
They should be able to speak at any time.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, this is Leah and Riley. I don't know if we got Riley's name on our name thingy, but we're here to talk about our two major issues as students and as people in Trinity County. It would be the lack of mental health support in our schools, and then our road quality is terrible. I personally have a 2.5 hour round trip every day to get to school. So when I'm riding on a road that's got lots of potholes, I understand that things like guardrails and the snow you can't really do much about, but we can have our potholes filled so that we don't have parents that are scared of sending their kids to school because they think that their school bus is going to hit a snowy pothole in the road, which happens. We've had them like spin around. It's not good. The potholes are really bad. The roads are really terrible. They make our trips take longer. They make our cars fall apart. We've had students on their way to school that have broken tie rods on their vehicles, just trying to get to a meeting, just trying to do something, and it's very inconveniencing. Do you want to say something about the roads?
I myself have been kept home from school because of the roads. My mom is concerned all the time when it gets icy and everything. It just adds a whole other danger to the already bad quality of roads.
And then for the mental health situation in our school, we know that we have resources available. The resources, it's just, we hear, like, you have a counselor somewhere, they can help you if you're having an issue, but we don't know where that counselor is. The counselor doesn't really communicate with us a lot. We don't have a relationship built. There's no trust there. Everyone's afraid to talk to a counselor because they believe that it will be chatted about among staff members at school, or that rumors will be spread, or that they'll be judged or treated differently in class, and that's just a big issue. People need help, and we have things like they did mental health week. It was like wear cowboy boots to stomp out stigma or something, and that's not helping kids that are actually suicidal. That's great to teach people about the terms and everything that have to do with mental health, but that's not helping kids that actually need it. That's good and it's appreciated, but there needs to be more involvement amongst staff and the kids, and they need to get together, maybe send out emails offering like anonymous chat sessions or something so that they can talk about their problems and not be scared that they'll be discussed, even though that's supposed to be guaranteed. So that's a big issue for kids, and they don't want to talk about things because they're worried that they'll be sent to a psych ward or that CPS will get involved. And so it'd be nice if that was clarified, like what can we talk about without getting in trouble, without having to be sent away, without getting other things involved. If we can share a little bit, it's better than being scared and sharing nothing at all.
There's a lack of communication between the students and the staff.
Yeah. There's no clarification of what can be said without other factors getting involved, because that's a legality issue, and we get that. You have to say, like, if there's something going on, but kids aren't going to share because they don't want to be taken away from their families, or they don't want to go to a psych ward, or they don't want those things to happen. So if they were able to share just a little bit without that happening, then that would be better than not at all. I think that's about it. You can answer questions.
Oh, let's save the questions. Just so, wait, do you both mind staying on for like a couple more minutes so I get to the end of the speech?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool. And you don't mind answering questions?
No.
Okay, awesome. You did a wonderful job. I just want to point out to you what Riley and Leo were talking about is this idea of like programs being created for youth, but youth aren't having input into these programs. So they're, in some ways, at least from what I hear from Riley and Leah, these programs are failing because they're not applicable to youth, right? Because what their needs are different sometimes than what adults view their needs to be. All right, so as schools shared differences, some recurrent themes arose. Small class sizes allowed for youth to socialize in a safe environment and have close relationships with their teachers. Mental health supports varied in schools, but across the board, the students stated that they needed increased support. The lack of opportunities are a large barrier in this community, and many are due to the remoteness of these communities. Schools demonstrated many protective factors, creating a culture of belonging and offsetting many of the barriers created by these rural communities. Slide, please. Now I will share about student vision. Students spoke about the need to improve town infrastructure. They wanted to create jobs by building local businesses. They wanted to build affordable housing for the economically disadvantaged. A teen center was spoke about for students to go to as a place where they could do something other than use drugs, like play arcade games, and maybe there would be like a snack bar. They spoke about the need for mental health services, which has been definitely a recurrent theme in this speech. And then a really big issue too that I saw was they spoke about drug rehabilitation centers and the need for that to be across the county, as it's been a huge barrier. So, slide please. So, conclusions. We need to take into account the lessons we have learned from our history so we don't make the same mistakes again. If we incorporate this cycle of boom and bust represented today into our economy planning, it would behoove us to diversify the economy as a way to improve the health outcomes for our community. Youth have given a fresh perspective on our community. We must look to them as stakeholders when creating policy, as they are our future, especially if that policy or program pertains to them. Next steps. Trinity County dissemination engagements have been held at high schools and stakeholder meetings across the county to fact check and facilitate dialogue about the data findings, and so far these findings have been supported. In the next couple months, I will be creating a youth-centered community profile that will be housed at Trinity County Office of Education, sharing the data that I collected. Slide, please. So vision for the future. Currently, at Chico State and in the North State, we're speaking about creating a youth collaborative. The idea is like a youth advisory council, and what would happen is we'd get youth from across the county, and they would use their knowledge of their communities to influence North State policy and policy in their communities. Slide, please. Implications for the broader community. The work of this project has the potential for broad and significant impact in Trinity County. By engaging youth in the work, this project has emboldened youth who are often overlooked as key stakeholders in their own community. If we connect these interested youth with business owners and policymakers, they will have a stake in their community and have a reason to stay here instead of using their skills in urban areas. There is a great significance in the role Chico State plays in the connections being made in Trinity County and our partnership with the North State. For many years, Chico State has claimed to partner with the North State, but few opportunities have risen to benefit local people in Trinity County. This research project is an example of Chico State's commitment to the underserved populations of the North State. We are setting a precedent for cultivating symbiotic relationships like this one now and into the future. Lastly, I hope to have the opportunity to be in touch with you and count on your support in the future as opportunities arise. I want to thank you for having me here and thank you for all the wonderful things you do for this community. I know I brought up a lot of controversial issues in this presentation, but I do think that you all do a wonderful job, and I appreciate all of your hard work. Slide please. I'm happy to answer any questions you have and have a discussion. If there aren't any questions, thank you for having me, and I look forward to your support.
Thank you so much for your presentation and sharing your findings. I think it's very valuable. Are there any other questions from the board? All right.
I just want to thank you, Luann, a fellow Coffee Creek graduate, I believe, yes. Thank you for your presentation, and thanks to Leah and Riley for giving their input.
Could I ask you all a question? Is that allowed?
You may not answer, but you can ask.
Okay, that happens to me. I'm a very curious person. What did you find most interesting about the data I shared?
I will say the high school perspectives, the students' perspective of the mental health, that was kind of something I would not have expected.
Okay.
And I would say the students' perspectives in their families, what they're experiencing based on their parents' choices and how they view those, how they feel they're impacted by those.
Yeah, I'll agree. The global youth perspective in the county, even though the communities are very different, I think there is an overwhelming underlying theme or themes that come along with it. And the youth is the future of the community. If they want to stay here or not, that would be a big determining factor in a lot of the county's outcomes with job force and things like that. So it's good beginning steps to come up with some good solutions.
What I want to point out to you is this idea, and I know Trinity Together is doing this, is this idea of finding youth and bringing them onto boards or connecting them with leaders of programs. This is one of the really big things that I found in my research in a way to combat youth from leaving, because it allows them to have a stake in the community. So if I were to ask you, would you be interested in having youth input on community policies? Like if there was a youth advisory council here in Trinity County that was able to weigh in kind of like Riley and Leah did, is that something that you'd be open to, or is that out of your wheelhouse? Just for my own research.
That's something they can do on their own initiative. It doesn't take board approval.
Okay, but it's something you'd be interested to and open to?
Personally, I would. I can't speak on behalf of the whole board.
Yes, I would.
Okay, cool. All right, well that gives me some hope. Thank you also. Oh, is there anything else you'd like to say to me?
Good job.
Thank you. All right, have a wonderful day, everybody.
All right, with that presentation concluded, we will move into the consent calendar. These items include routine non-controversial matters and will be acted upon the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Are there any items wishing to be pulled from members of the board?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Item 3.6 and 3.7, please.
All right, 3.6 and 3.7. Any other items which you read? Hearing none, look for a motion.
I will move to accept the consent agenda minus the two full items.
All right.
I'll second that.
I'm going to have a motion by Supervisor Groves and a second by Supervisor Gogan. Please call the board.
Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go into item 3.6. Find no objection to the issuance of a daily alcoholic beverage license to the North Fork Range to serve alcoholic beverages at their concert to be held at Junction City Community Park in Junction City, California on June 19th, 2021. No fiscal impact.
Mr. Chair, at this time I will recuse because this is an alcohol issue, and I will also recuse for the same issue in 3.7. So not to delay things, I'll remove myself for both items.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board concerning this item?
I would make a motion to accept items 3.6 and 3.7 as presented.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Margaret, are we to bundle those two together? Thank you.
Technically no, but because
They're the exact same thing. Okay. All right, Emma, please call the board.
Motion by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Supervisor Groves, come on back.
Can you just actually clarify that that was for both 3.6 and 3.7?
I can do that. So that vote was 4-0 with Supervisor Groves recused for items 3.6 and 3.7.
Thank you, Emma.
All right, are all the board members continuing? Take a 5-10 break. All right, you're going into reports and announcements. 4.1, report from department heads. Are there any department heads on the Zoom function wishing to report out?
I don't wish to report out, I just wanted to confirm, I did double check the information I gave before regarding the applicant had made a request for good cause for the continuance, which is why the item was continued. I did confirm that.
Thank you. Any other department heads wishing to report out?
Good morning, Tim Saxon, Sheriffs.
Thank you, Tim. Please go ahead.
Thank you. At the beginning of the year, Chairman Brown asked me to provide some information for the board with regard to operations of the Sheriff's Office, specifically for some of the newer board members. I apologize for the delay in providing this information, and as I collected the information, traditionally in the past, we had collected this information, and it was pretty much more towards statistics on enforcement. And what I'd really like at this time to provide some information to talk about some of our operational things. And the statistics I have for you right now, this is a time period between April of 2020 and April of 2021 for a 12-month period there. And I want to talk a little bit about our communications center and our dispatch services. And we provide dispatch services for our patrol division, detectives, narcotics, code enforcement, animal control, our custody transport, probation department, the DA's office, Department of Transportation, Health and Human Services, the Marshal's Office, also every fire department in the county, and as well as supplemental services as needed for our partner agencies, such as the California Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife, BLM, U.S. Forest Service, and CAL FIRE. And additionally, our comm center dispatches for Trinity Life Support, STAR, and we provide call-outs downriver for UPA Ambulance and our air ambulance services from out of the county whenever needed here to provide services. And I'd like to talk just briefly about our custody division. During this 12-month period, which was severely impacted by COVID, we had booked 473 individuals into our facility. And at the same time, we had 24 individuals who were sentenced to state prison who remained housed here in Trinity County Detention Facility when CDCR was shut down and not taking any intake due to their COVID restrictions. So we were responsible for housing them for that period of time. During that 12-month period, we served 62,415 meals to our incarcerated population. That's about 171 meals a day. People also may not realize that while people are incarcerated here, we're responsible for medical treatment for those in custody. And we provided nearly 50,000 doses of medication for those that are incarcerated here in our facility. And our transportation unit, they moved 1,680 persons to and from court over that 12-month period. So also during that period, there were nearly 7,000 total calls for service. There were nearly 11,000 calls that came into our dispatch center for non-emergency administrative purposes. And our system was able to track about 174,000 radio transmissions that handled all of those calls that came in. So I just want you to know that you can imagine that our communications operators can be pretty busy at certain periods of time, especially during fires and other emergencies and disasters. So just tracking fire, EMS, and search and rescue calls, 1,980 during that 12-month period. And total law enforcement calls, 4,961. And that includes patrol calls, which would be also including child abuse, juvenile calls, sex crimes, narcotics, code enforcement, voting, traffic calls, civil calls, and the all ever-consuming miscellaneous calls. So I just wanted to briefly report out on those, and at the end of the year, I will be providing the fiscal year numbers that will include a lot more different statistics with regard to enforcement numbers. But just wanted to let you know briefly that's pretty much what the other side does. I know you always hear about patrol and the numbers and all those types of things, but I wanted to let you know what the other side does, because we often forget about what that side of the shop does, but we are responsible for a lot of other things other than just patrol, but not to take away from the fine service that the men and women of the patrol unit does. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim, for sharing that. That is very valuable, and many things there that I was unaware of the services you guys provide. Appreciate your time. Are there any other department heads wishing to report out?
Yes, this is Director Tippett.
All right, go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple things I want to report out today. First of all, our road maintenance and rehabilitation account project list is going to be published on the internet either later today or tomorrow, and I'll send you all a link to how to look it up, and that way you can see what a 5-year plan is and what coming out as our proposed plan for the next meeting. I just want to advise the board that we managed through talks with the Forest Service. We managed to convince them a type class, Weaverville Airport. We are waiting the helicopter rescue line. I actually have the helicopter standby at the airport throughout the summer, so we have a much more much more expedient response on the aviation side. The Federal Lands Access Program grant for
Hey Rick, your service sucks. Is there somewhere better you can stand?
Submitted. Last question. 10 minutes. Sorry,
Are you pacing?
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, the Federal Lands Access Grant Program, we did submit for Canyon Creek, and we requested $34 million in road reconstruction. Finally, the last item I have to share with you today is I brought to the board's attention that we had $104 million worth of tree removal to get done. I did request assistance from the state and was granted that assistance. The only issue that we had was we have to identify all the trees that are in our right-of-way no later than June 15th. So it requires us to, we essentially brought on board 2 surveyors to begin work immediately, and the contract for each one of them is $250,000. And granted, it has the potential of being $500,000. At least it's there's no match when the state does the work. So instead of having this potential $6 million match that we had, most of our exposure right now would be $500,000 for getting surveyors on board and having them do it at the speed that they're doing. But our hope is to have about 75% of the trees marked by the deadline, and they told us that they have enough trees to get going that they'll allow us to finish up after the 15th. So we are, the surveyors did go out. Today was the first day out there, and they are marking trees that are in our right-of-way for removal. And we are coordinating both with the Forest Service and with Calorie Cycle to make sure that everything is coordinated correctly. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Can you just repeat about the airport? Your service was not working.
Sorry. The airport, they have the Forest Service have requested to allow for a Class 1 helicopter to be there, and I managed to convince them to stage a state Class 1 helicopter at the airport this summer. And as long as it's on call, it will be there for, we're charging them no airport rental until it actually goes and fights the fire, and then we will charge a rental. But the good news is that that puts the Class 1 helicopter in the county for most of the summer to be able to respond immediately if there is a fire. And that's something we've not had before.
Thank you so much, Rick. Yeah, go ahead.
So Rick, on the tree marking, what service are we doing, or is the state doing? Are they just going to tip the trees over, or this is part of decking them, or are they hauling them someplace?
Well, right now our main purpose is to get them identified so that they can get an arborist on board to verify which ones need to be fall and which ones will survive. And we're coordinating with the Forest Service right now about how to dispose of them, and then we'll also be coordinating with the private property owners for some of those that might be right on the property line. But our intent is to utilize it as a resource, and if we can recover from it at all, then recover those funds.
I didn't quite follow what he's, but I'll talk to you offline about it, Rick. And I will be impressed if somebody can mark 79 miles of trees in 2 weeks.
All right, well, good work getting it done on that time frame. I know that was a limited informational window you had, so thank you. Any other department heads wishing to report out?
Thank you.
Hearing none, Dr. Coons, do you have any report out?
Yeah, just a quick update, a few things. One, the progress on the planning campus building. We were hoping to have it completed by fall. We're doing it primarily all in-house, all the construction. I mean, we're contracting out for electrical and our fiber, but everything else we're doing in-house, and they're on schedule right now to have it completed by August, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule. And when you do construction, you always run into a few snags, but at this point, it looks like we will be done in August. Picked up colors today for carpet, or yesterday for carpet and paint. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do in such a short amount of time with such little staff. So if any board members like to take a look at it, we can walk you through it, show you the progress. And I don't know if this is something now or we'll bring back later, but we've been reached out by Paul from PUD to maybe bring in front of the board to get support for SB 12, not support for SB 12, but to support some changes to that legislation. So we may be bringing that back. Next time I'll discuss a little further with him. I know he's been in contact with Supervisor Cox still, Supervisor Groves, so that's something that will be on our radar shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you on budget over there?
Pardon me?
Are you on budget at the?
We're under budget right now, yes.
Good.
All right, well, congratulations on that progress. Report from members of the board. Supervisor Frazier, let's start with you.
Apparently I lost my notes, but I had a North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District meeting. Not a lot going there this time around. And more community level on the 25th, we had the Post Mountain Cleanup Day, where we preliminary numbers I got from Chris Losey, 112 volunteers showed up. 60 of those were, 62 or something were Forest Service, 50 fire and 12 non-fire. Then we had a lot of over 20 local Post Mountain residents that chipped in. There was 15 people from the Watershed Center. That was a pretty major effort. I think I was told to build three 40-foot dumpsters in Hayfork and probably around the same equivalent went to Weaverville, so we're talking 240 cubic yards of garbage.
Over 100 tons, I think, yeah.
And so, I think it was successful. Now the thing is whether or not we can get the community to chip in to maintain that. I know it was eye-opening. The site I was at, we moved, I don't know, probably a couple of dump trucks of loads of garbage before we found the edge of the county road. It was that far out into the road. So that was it was an interesting thing. And then on Monday, I was in Hayfork for the Memorial Day ceremony. And that was a neat thing too. That the cemetery in Hayfork, Liam and I were both there. So I think that's about all I have to report for now. I'm sure I forgot something.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Gilman.
Just a couple things to report out. I was at the Trinity County Fairgrounds meeting last week. Everything's going great. They are optimistic about this summer's activities. Everything is scheduled and moving forward as planned. I was at a full-day Trinity Management Council meeting for the Science Advisory Board, which I'm on. We're kind of awarding for the draft refinement and implementation of that, which seems to be going fairly well. Both myself and Dan were at the Memorial Day reading. We both read the names of veterans who are buried in Hayfork's cemetery, which is about 250, 300 people, which was surprising to me, and it was was eye-opening. It was a great day. So we were lucky enough to get out there and honored to get out there to do that. One thing I just wanted to talk back to, I think it was John Forpole, about the scoping documents for the June 18th flow variation schedule. It sounded like he had some concerns with that. I also have some concerns with that. Definitely with the timing of it, and obviously saw the initial plan being a wet year. That was in the paper last year, and not all 5 classifications. And I would like to see a little bit more than peer review, announced peer review, which I hope the restoration is coming up with. And one of the other things that I am cautious of is that plan will, I think, really put a dampening on our winter tourism to Trinity County. It looks like the majority of the December through, we'll say March time period, April-March time period, flows will be above 1,000. And that makes it very tough for fishermen. And I know they're not trying to curtail tourism, but it will severely curtail fishing on the river, which is a big part of our downtown business at that time. So let's hope we get that worked on and see how we go through that. That's it.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Gross.
Yeah, so we had, Liam and I met with TRRP staff on budget reviews for the TRRP program, giving the county's priorities. This is a program that we used to, well, I joked that they would throw all the money in the floor and everybody would wrestle around for it, but now we actually have a really good process that move forward and they get everybody's priorities together and then they try to work them out. So the budget meetings are much cleaner. There is, of course, declining budgets, and so the priorities are becoming tighter and tighter. We also met discussing how we could get funding for a natural resource person, which CAO Coons is working on with Ms. Hunter to bring in a part-time, or a full-time for us, but part-time paid by TRRP, which is very exciting for us to start thinking about rebuilding our natural resources. The TMC also, I had a meeting on refinements where some priorities were set. There was discussion in refinements about setting priorities and setting goals. The goal timing on how far the goal should be out ranged from 3 years to 25 years. Liam and I both have advocated for a much shorter time period than others, but the number that we're kind of settling down on is 10 years, which I think is too far out, but that's part of the, we're one vote and we've got it, at least it's not ridiculous amount of time period out there. And on the TMC winter flows, I think it's important to understand that for the gentleman that this is the scoping period and this is the time to make your comments and look at it. This has potential to be very beneficial if done right. There's a long ways to go in this process. It does seem that there's not enough feed in the river for the little guys in the wintertime. But again, this has to have everything, all the information, data put in, studied and looked at before the process moves forward, and that's the process we're in right now. So I have no opinions because the final document is not out yet. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Supervisor.
Yes, so first off, I was really appreciative of the opportunity to be asked to come down and meet Rachel Berkey. She is our new forest supervisor on Shasta Trinity, and I think that was probably a lot due to some efforts of our interim forest supervisor, Ted MacArthur, making that introduction. I just appreciate that that invitation was extended. I was delighted to meet her, and I am excited to see where her energy takes us. She's got some, and she's delightful. The next town hall for District 2 is on June 14th, and that's going to be our general manager, PUD, Paul Boozer, is going to talk about the PUD right-of-way expansion. And I just would encourage people to jump on that meeting and listen. In the conversation that I've had with different folks in the community, there are quite a number of details that are really important to that whole process and desired outcome that are really critical, and people are unaware of a lot of them. So if you would take that opportunity to educate yourself, be able to ask questions, I would really encourage that. It's on Zoom, and the link is on the website. I had my first Superior California Economic Development meeting in the last couple of weeks, and so that transition of the committee swap between Chair Brown and myself has gone very well. I'm delighted to be there. I'm excited about what I'm going to learn. The committee chair is Bob Nash, and he has invited me down for a little private training session, which I am delighted to take him up on. That's on Friday.
I never got that offer.
I'm sorry. I can tell you what I learned. And then the last thing, I appreciate the memorial service that went on in Hayfork, and there was one in the Weaverville Cemetery as well. And I just want to have a moment to appreciate Walter Scott, Bruce Black, Bob Landrick, and Garth Pedrati, who endured the hot temperatures in their fine, colorful uniform attire, and many retired military who were not in uniform were in attendance also. Pastor Walter Scott prayed a really beautiful prayer of gratitude for the opportunity of the day to remember our fallen brothers and sisters who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. I was touched and moved by the whole experience. And I'm going to post the pictures and a copy of the prayer that he prayed on my website.
All right, thank you so much. I don't have anything as interesting to share. I had a collaborative meeting and a SSTAG meeting. At the collaborative meeting, the discussion was about some of the lower 48 project, the fuel break, shaded fuel breaks, and how well that burned up. So trying to figure out how to assess that project and utilize it still. And with SSTAG, it's just transportation stuff. Nothing really super interesting to share with that. So that concludes my report out. Maybe go ahead and adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes, and then we'll be coming back to county matters at 11:30. Thank you.
voted out, and that usually teaches people lessons.
Get started, John. Sorry, lead yourself. I'm ready whenever you're done.
All yours.
All right. Going into county matters, these items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board or staff may request that an item be heard out of order. And just a reminder, we do have a subsequent item that will be heard at the end before closed session. And another note, I will be moving item 5.4 up to before planning and zoning. Which brings us to human resources, item 5.1. Modify the departmental.
Mr. Chair, do we have the opportunity to request?
Yes, I apologize.
I would request that we move 5.3 up to front. It's up to you.
I'd rather get the department staff back to their positions.
Okay.
Thank you. Human Resources, item 5.1, modify the departmental allocation list for Health and Human Services, Welfare Division to read 5, Account Clerk 1-2, or Accounting Technician 1-2, Senior Accountant 1-2-3, effective June 1st, 2021. No impact to the general fund. Approximate cost and salary and benefits for an accountant 2 on A step is $8,495. Shelley?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Shelley Nelson, HR Director. Health and Human Services Department, the Welfare Division, is requesting to add an Accountant 3 classification to their departmental allocation list. They already have an Accountant 1-2, they just wanted to add a flexibly staffed 3 as well. They are not adding any additional allocations, just the classification, which would allow for promotional opportunities and also assist with recruitment and equally important retention within the department. So the request is to modify the list by adding an accountant 3.
All right, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none. Is there any public comment on this item? Anybody on Zoom?
I have no new chats and no raised hands.
Okay. Bring back to the board. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to accept 5.1 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, now we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from Supervisor Frazier. Please pull the board.
Supervisor Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to do the solid waste, item 5.4, adopt a resolution authorizing solid waste to acquire 2017 Mobart tub grinder and finance the equipment with a 5-year lease from Salisbury Hill Financial LLC. No impact to the general fund, $467,699 over 5 years from the solid waste enterprise fund. Diane, you have the floor.
Good morning, Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. The item before you is a request to adopt a resolution authorizing us to buy a used tub grinder and finance it over a period of 5 years with a municipal lease. And I've detailed all of our trials and tribulations with trying to manage our brush piles, starting with Trinity Center, which is our main problem at this point, where the residents can't even have the site closed because the brush is overflowing from what the areas that it should be in. After trying different routes and nobody being able to help us with that, then we've come to the conclusion maybe we should just have a tub grinder so that we can go and maintain all of the sites. We have 6 of them that collect brush. We're talking about 3,000 yards of brush that we collect a year. And we're estimating it'd be about 150 hours a year to maintain that ourselves. Looking at the different options we've tried, then we've, an estimate for just one site would be $50,000 on contracted services. And that's $300,000 a year, just roughly if you multiply it by 6 sites. Renting a shredder and supplying labor out of county with it would have come in at $180,000 per year for all sites. And we're estimating about $105,000 for us to be able to do it ourselves. That includes the cost of the lease. And will set us up for managing them in the future without having to worry about what the air quality is doing and having one single person out trying to burn a pile of brush in the future. And I think that is it, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, Diane, so how many people does it, do you have to have a piece of equipment to feed this grinder? Is that the?
This piece that staff has found is ideal for us because it has a grapple attached to it, which means that whoever's taking the grinder out of it can also operate it and load it. We have some other logistical stuff that we'll still have to work on with it, but basically we think we can manage it ourselves.
So that would just be one person that does that?
I probably have to see, I'm thinking ultimately yes, but I would start it off with more than just one person to see how it worked.
And then I'm going to have you, I know you've answered this question for me multiple times, but just for the record, people might be watching, the folks in Trinity Center just don't quite get why we just don't get a pig and get a keg of beer and go out there and burn the whole thing, once a year as a big company party. But
I'm worried where the fire would go after that when we were done doing our site, just having the attendant out there minding the brush themselves with it. That's why we, in the past, had groups that would do it, like volunteer fire departments or the conservation camp crews, because then there were people that were actually trained on doing fires, managing it. And just from a safety standpoint, that seemed more logical for burning.
were there also air quality control issues?
There are, and I anticipate that's going to get worse going forward, just being in California with the way regulations are going.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Diane, I have a question. Will RCD be able to utilize the tub grinder as well for brush clearing activities, or is it going to be isolated to solid waste?
I'd like to think that I could help out other groups with it. I would prefer my own operators probably doing it, but I'm going to have, I'd like to say that there's somebody that could work out something to help out with it, yeah, because the whole thing is to be able to manage the brush within the county.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
Jay Grossman, Chris Hayfork. I honestly didn't even know this was on the agenda, but I would raise a number of massive questions and red flags having to do with purchase for the county. I maintain over 1,000 acres of timberland in Trinity County, and I myself was just looking at the different options for clearing brush and whatnot. I absolutely love doing it. It's one of my favorite things, is clearing roads on my properties. I've looked at a lot of tub grinders, and that's arguably the most expensive used tub grinder I've ever seen. That being said, what people in this county have the ability to bring quote-unquote brush that a tub grinder is needed to a site? I own dump trucks, and a tub grinder is used to grind stones. I mean, you can buy for far less than $100,000 a self-feeding chipper that does up to 21-inch pieces of timber. I don't understand how we're spending $500,000 on something that literally you can't even rent anywhere, that like huge outfits like Mercer Fraser have, when we don't even have a dumpster truck in the county that can service close to half of Trinity County. I've talked to them. I tried to get one to a property of an employee of mine who got abated that is in downtown Hayfork because he has a dirt driveway. They said their truck will not go up it because it doesn't even have a locker on it. I asked them how that's humanly possible, and they said the county didn't have the money to spring for a truck with a locker. So how are we going to spend $500,000 when we're at $4.1 million over budget? We're going to spend $500,000 on a tool that nobody even up here, except for Mercer Fraser, who has their own airplane, has, to take care of brush at our dump sites, which I would be led to assume is mostly brought by here in Trinity Center residents, bringing trailers, trucks to clear, which I'm in full support. I also think that it is unsafe, absolutely outlandish, and absurd to think that one person is safely operating a $500,000 tub grinder that has the ability to literally ship a one-ton truck. Thank you.
Other public comment?
I have no new chats and no raised hands.
Is there any additional discussion of the board?
Yeah. Diane, would you mind speaking to those concerns?
I'm in total support of getting something to take care of all this brush, by all means. I don't know if that's it.
After looking at many different options for it, this is the piece of equipment that we could find. I've had staff looking, and over a course of a year, year and a half, and this is what they found that would fit what they thought would be able to provide what we needed to manage the brush. And
so is this I can't picture it. Is this something that you take to the brush, or you're finding a way to get the brush to the machine?
we're taking it to the brush. We take it to each site and grind what's on site. And that would cover all 6 sites. We have Weaverville and Hayfork that are our largest sites, and then the smaller ones.
And the safety issue of one person operating it?
Staff feels that it's not a safety issue, but I can answer that after talking to them further if you like.
Oh no, you'll handle the safety, I'm sure.
Any additional questions or discussion of the board?
I do have some questions. I was wondering about the tub grinder. When I read that, if that was a miscommunication or what, I don't really see how transfer sites could need a tub grinder. I mean, tub grinders are designed to grind logs, not brush. So it seems like it would be overkill to me. I'm not sure exactly what staff was looking for. To me, for brush, we would need a self-feeding chipper, not a tub grinder. Tub grinder, they fed whole logs through the tub grinder on South Fork Mountain since the fire, where you have to have off-highway dump trucks to move the chips that you're creating, and usually, if this one has a grapple, that's one thing, they're usually feeding it with an excavator and off-highway dump trucks. It's a massive amount of capacity for a transfer site that I can't remember the exact number, a few thousand yards of brush a year. It seems to me like you would be able to do that in minutes with a tub grinder this size. So I think it might be slightly overkill.
Do you know how long the tub grinder is supposed to last? What its expected life expectancy is?
The numbers that I was going through when we were checking to see about registering it in California was that it could run out past 2034.
So at least 10 years.
I think heavy equipment, when I'm just looking at a depreciation schedule on it, then they amortize it over 7 years to 11 years. But we run most of our equipment well past what those numbers are.
Is there any chance Kelly from RCD is on Zoom? Any chance? No. Were you able to, I know you commented on here in the discussion, was RCD interested in being able to co-use it at all, or?
I did not ask that question. I tried to see if they could help us out and chip the brush for us so that we didn't have to look for another piece of equipment, and it was beyond what they could handle.
Yeah. Do you think there would be opportunity too to also utilize the services for someone like the Watershed Center and their projects that they do? would there be an ability to, essentially rent out the service of the dump grinder as well?
I don't see why it couldn't do that, because we keep track of all of the costs on operations so that I could come up with a rental rate on it. I know that originally we had talked with Rick at DOT, we were talking about sharing the lease, but I figured since he wasn't in a position where he wanted to do that, and was just going to rent equipment, I go, well, if I get this piece of equipment, then we can come up with a rental rate for that. So I'm planning on trying to share it to help alleviate the problems.
I just wonder if theoretically it could be utilized to clear a bunch of those trees and pay for itself within a short period of time with that project in the fire area. So maybe check with Rick and see if that's any potential. And Dr. Coons, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think we're talking a little different with what Rick's project is talking. The state's going to take care of that. I think if we got involved, it would end up costing us money. My only question is to Diane, do you anticipate needing that size of unit? Will we be grinding things that require that size of unit, or are you anticipating most of it being brush and trees under 21 inches?
Currently, what we accept at the site is nothing over a 4-inch because of what we have in the way of handling in the past. And that my thought was to be able to expand on what we could take by having a larger piece of equipment. And this is the smallest one that they found in that range of equipment that also had the grapple with it so that it could be more or less self-contained.
So something a bit smaller like the chipper that Supervisor Frazier was referring to wouldn't serve the need?
That would be more along the line of what our CD has, is my understanding, and that wouldn't handle what we've had there. But I could look into it further if you like.
So let me ask you, you said it was good till 2034. That was just the Air Resource Board, and it would have to be filed under low use means less than 200 hours. If it did go out to RCD or anybody else, would that put us over the 200-hour threshold for exhaust? I guess that might be. And if right now, if you're taking 6-inch, 4-inch stumps, we'll say boards, I don't think anybody's going to bring in 18-inch
blackberries and carrots and stuff.
Logs to the dumps. I think this is overkill. Let me just go back and look at this again and see if we can find something that fits more into the shredder more than a stump grinder. This just seems to be a little costly. And I think we need to look at this a lot closer, honestly. Thank you.
All right, well, it sounds like there's some hesitation from the board. I don't know if it would be appropriate to table this for now, and maybe some of the concerns you've heard can be addressed in more detail. Is that okay with the board, and is that okay?
No, we are in a crisis in Trinity Center, and people have no place to dump their stuff for fire protection, so they've gone a year without. I think if the board's will is to not buy this, then I think that we need to stand up and direct staff to go find something that, with all our expertise on the board, we think is better than staff's. This has to be taken care of soon, because at last I heard Diane was going to start moving. She's going to have to start emptying dumps and then putting it in dump trucks and hauling it to Weirville and stacking it in Weirville. And I'm sure that's not a very cheap process. But I don't know about other dumps, but right now it's the #1 complaint that my district has. So.
And you feel that this is a fitting solution?
Well, it's probably overkill, but it does work. And you're also forgetting the fact that to rent a shredder to do this is $180,000 a year, and it's $300,000 a year to just contract it all out. So from cost benefit analysis there, it's pretty good. Now, you have a machine that's probably twice as big or 3 times as big as you need, maybe. But my main point here is we have to be able to start shipping stuff in the next 2 months or getting it out of there. And so instead of just kicking it down the road, we need to say either yes or no, or go find us something that's not as expensive.
What about it as an option? Is the chipper that the RCD has something that we could rent over the next couple of weeks to meet the immediate need, while we take 2 weeks to look and bring back maybe one other option that we could weigh, so that these folks can move forward? And obviously we need to take care of fire safe hazard mitigations, as quickly as possible. But maybe that we can all feel really comfortable about the decision, or is this something that if we don't act on it, you'll lose it?
There's a possibility of losing it if we don't act on it, but if you like, I can check back with RCD. The last time we checked, or actually while I was writing the item, then staff is still checking to see what other options were on it. And we could maybe revise the scope and see if their answer would be different.
So I think Pat Frost is on the line, and I don't know if he can speak for the RCD, but can he maybe, Pat, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me? So I can't really speak for the RCD, but I can speak about the RCD and the chippers that they have. And it's an interesting historical perspective. Is the RCD actually got a grant in 2003 for the county to buy a tub grinder, and at that time the county declined to do it. But anyway. Chippers, the problem with the chippers for the kinds of material that people are bringing in and then leaving at the transfer stations is the cleanliness of that material. So the chippers need pretty much clean material. They can, the RCD's chippers can take, stems that are 8 to 10 inches in diameter, though most people keep that for firewood. But once you get vines and blackberries and rocks and gravel and sand in, and you're trying to put that through the chippers, it pretty much destroys the blades on the chippers. That's why tub grinders are used for that kind of material, and you'd have to see a picture of what's at Trinity Center. People, were bringing that material for a few months at least, and then essentially depositing it there, and it's not the kind of thing that a crew can go in, grab the stems, and run through a self-feeding chipper. The other option, though, that we've heard about, and Jeremy maybe has heard a little bit from the Trinity County Collaborative, maybe not, but CAL FIRE has something called an air curtain burner, which is like a Connex container size box that is this really, really hot and efficient burner that you put things in it just like you would a tub grinder, but essentially incinerates everything down to a little bit of ash. They've been using it over in southern Trinity, primarily through the Mad River Ranger District. But that's something to explore if you're going to do that, but it won't be something you'll get in 2 weeks. The Air Resources District works very closely with Forest Service on the permitting of them, and because they have very little smoke and particulate emission. So that might be an option to be able to, but I don't know how long it would take you to get in the queue for one of the CAL FIRE air curtain burners. And I also, just to let you know, I sent a text to Kelly Sheen to let him know you were having this discussion, but he's in a meeting with BLM about a green tree harvest project in the Weaverville Community Forest.
Kat, if we were to be able to get in the queue for that air curtain burner with CAL FIRE, do you have any idea what it would cost to rent that?
I don't, but I could get Diane contact information with Mad River Ranger District. They've got really good costs on that. And it takes, it takes a couple of people probably to operate. You've got to have somebody with a, with a bucket or, grapple kind of arm to be able to load the stuff, and somebody, I think, running the actual curtain burner. But I can get Diane that information as soon as we are done with this. But putting on my person who lives in Trinity Center and is on the Trinity Center Community Service District, the fire department board, we got to get something. I agree with Keith. We got to get something happening, because this stuff has been there for over a year, and it's at the Hobel transfer station, and it's a hazard.
I will note that Diane's, in her backup, talks about the air curtain, and says, although the concept was interesting, there was more involved than we thought at first, and would not work with our limited resources. So I'll give it for Diane, who's already looked at this.
Okay, then I won't pursue that with her.
I can call with her Ranger District and ask them about it and see if staff check with them, because I know that we couldn't find one ourselves, and we couldn't find one that was manufactured anywhere locally. I think it was overseas, and you could buy it from.
The $180,000 per year option to rent something, is that something that we've been doing in the past?
No, it's last year, I think it was, I got a quote for a 2-week rental that was $16,000, and then I had to add loading equipment and moving equipment and staff on top of that I was going to borrow from the road department mainly, and that's where I'm coming up with that estimated number.
I was just thinking in terms of if that's money we've already been spending per year over the years, then this quickly pays for itself, and then my concern's gone. But I don't know. I think for me, I'm leaning toward fire safety and feeling like if you can find the money in the budget and you're comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable.
Any other discussion from the board? Otherwise, any motion?
Jeremy, since you did allow Pat Frost to speak, that means we reopened the public. And it looks like we have another public person wanting to comment.
Thank you, Chair. Supervisors, David Colbeck, Senior Environmental Compliance Specialist for the Department of Transportation. So not speaking as a member of the public, but as the only DOT representative in the room. I can say I haven't researched this specifically, but in my experience with the county over the past couple of years, there has been need in the Department of Transportation in our corporate yards to maintain and deal with larger debris, essentially, that a tug grinder could be useful for. In the past, I've had to get permits through the North Coast Air Quality District in order to allow for us to burn that material, sometimes using excavators or otherwise to move it around because it was of significant size. So I just want the board to know that there is need, although I can't speak specifically to the extent of the need with the DOT, but it is conceivable that in the future or in the lifespan of this piece of equipment that the DOT would have some interest in it, and there could be an interdepartmental arrangement where we could make use of it or otherwise provide services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since public comment is reopened, I asked 2 questions.
I think you already did your public comment on this item.
Introduce some more information to the...
It's the same item. Yeah.
I'm purely just trying to help with the solution. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jake.
So, my question is, when we're talking about burning versus chipping with a tub grinder, where is all the chips going? And then, is that factored into the trucking, the loading, all of that factored into the cost of operating this, how many people it's going to take, versus if we did a CAL FIRE solution and essentially incinerated it all, which has a minute amount of waste, how will that entire operation, not just the actual chipping of it, but the entire operation go? Because I know when they just did the 36 corridor, they covered essentially from Hayfork to Mad River with wood chips in the byproduct, and had, as Supervisor Frazier was talking about, an endless amount of over-the-road trucks, oversized dump trucks hauling chips. So that's something to look at, that if there's no waste versus what waste, and how much that's going to cost, because I know trucking is, in most situations, the largest cost of any of these operations. Thank you.
Dan, you mentioned some of the trucking of the chips in your report, but wouldn't it also be possible to just allow the community to pick up chips for landscaping and composting? And so
I'd be more than willing to share whatever I had. I'm planning on doing that at whatever sites I can for the county and for the transfer sites.
Okay.
And of course, at some point, we're going to run out and go, okay, we need something else to do with them.
Yeah. At least downriver, every time there's chips on the side of the road that's gone within 3 days, people are out there with their shovels shoveling it up and so.
And I'd be happy to share.
Awesome. Any other questions from the board? Comments?
Mr. Colbeck, how expensive are the air quality permits and how hard are they to get?
Can I just answer what I got from the airport? I had staff check, and the initial permit is $1,700, and then there's an annual $800. That's included in my cost estimate of the $105,000 that I had.
To clarify that, the equipment itself.
Oh, yes.
So, again, David Colbeck, that answer there was for the equipment itself, which you're required to get anytime you have a generator or some piece of equipment that will be running for a certain number of hours. And so, for example, the jail, I just got a permit for the jail generator that was along those same lines that Ms. Rader just mentioned. In terms of the burning permit itself, that is actually not that expensive or onerous of a permit in order to pay for or obtain. It is just simply a matter of process in detailing and getting them the information they need. So I would not consider that to be a budgetary item.
Thank you.
Any additional comments, discussion? Entertain any motions? I'll move to approve the item as presented.
I'll second.
And I have a motion from myself and a second from Supervisor Cox. Please call the board.
Supervisor Cox, how do you vote? Aye. Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
No.
Supervisor Frazier?
No.
Thank you.
Was this a three-member motion? Okay.
It passes. Yes. For the record, this item passes 3-2. Thank you.
All right. Our next item is planning and zoning. Item 5.2, receive an update on the commercial cannabis program from Director of Building and Planning, Kim Hunter, and Senior Environmental Compliance Specialist, David Colbeck. No fiscal impact. You have the floor, Director Hunter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Kim Hunter, Building and Planning Director. I'll be presenting the next two items on the agenda. First, the cannabis program update. I also have David Colbeck, Senior Environmental Compliance Specialist with the Department of Transportation here as well, answer any questions that may come up. So first of all, licenses that are valid and active, we have 302. 215 of those are urgency ordinance extensions, and 87 are currently valid licenses that have not come up yet for renewal under the urgency ordinance. As far as staffing goes, I'm happy to report we're up to 3.5 cannabis members in our staff right now, up from 2.5 last week. We did have a new admin coordinator come on to help up front, take phone calls, manage files. It's a small step, a step in the right direction. Right now, we're flying recruitments for assistant associate planner, code compliance specialist, and cannabis program manager in the cannabis division. We have had interviews also for admin coordinator position as well, but haven't made no offers at this time. We have interviewed several candidates for the cannabis program manager and have more interviews scheduled for early next week. Also, the request for qualifications is now posted on our planning and cannabis websites. This is a request for qualifications, or RFQ, and it's for cannabis licensing, commercial cannabis licensing services to help with, manage our cannabis files, the CEQA review as well, which would be Appendix C of the EIR. That was adopted last year. To get us through that. I think it's well known that right now it is very, very difficult to find employees and qualified employees. It's always been a struggle for smaller rural counties. And now with the current climate in the state, everybody is, I mean, it's well known. We're filling that as well with recruitments, but we're moving forward and we're getting some applicants. So I remain optimistic that we're making progress. Let's see, just a reminder, the transition plan is 3 parts. So I already covered staffing. That's one component, major component of the transition plan. You heard during public comment, that things are going very slow. I also want to mention that the impact of the cannabis program on all of the departments that I manage, including environmental health, building, and planning. We all struggle. There's a huge workload, and we're doing the best we can. We have a really good staff right now, and really good morale in the office, and everybody's working very hard. But yes, things are going slower. Staff is going really fast, and when you're going really fast, sometimes mistakes are made, but we're doing the best when those mistakes are made to rectify those and to correct what is needed and get these projects going. The second component of the transition plan is, of course, the transition plan itself, the actual plan document. So we have the staff and resources, which would be consultants and staff, the actual plan. And David is bearing the majority of the load on putting that transition plan together. He's making good progress. We do not have an ETA for you. Expected time for that to be finished, but we should have that soon. We're feeling, again, very confident with the progress being made, and it's coming along very well. And yeah, we'll have that soon. The third component of the transition plan is outreach and education. I mentioned this before. This is an area we really need to work on. To get word out on how this plan is going to work, this transition plan, how it works as we transition to the new program with the EIR mitigations, and answer the questions that folks may have. So we need to tap into social media. We need to get into where we are in modern day future communications and really take advantage of that marketing opportunity, so to speak, as it would be a business. That would include, social media, Facebook, Instagram, what am I forgetting, Twitter, and of course, YouTube videos, how-to videos, in addition to the written materials. But from what we've seen so far, the written materials like the FAQs, they're too technical or they're complicated, they're really hard for most people to digest. And so we want to improve on that outreach. That's critical to the success of this. All 3 of these components go together in the transition plan. So just a reminder on how that will work for everybody. And lastly, we are, again, just as I mentioned, we're working slowly. There was when I came on board in July 2019, there was a backlog of conditional use permits and other types of projects that need to be heard at the Planning Commission. We're slowly working through those. They are complex. We're working with our consultants, SHN, and they provide support for us. Still, it takes staff to in-house to be able to get the right information to our consultants so they can move forward with their part of the work for these projects. There are 2 conditional use permits on the agenda for the next Planning Commission, and those are related to various commercial cannabis uses. Both include, there's little differences in each one of them. One's in Hayfork, one's actually in Weaverville. And the components, though, that they share are distribution, nursery, and processing. So there's some other uses, not cultivation with either of these. Well, one of them has cultivation, the Hayfork site. But the Planning Commission is working through these as well. And they are complicated process. They're complex. And we have to work through the CEQA. Both have mitigated negative declarations proposed as the CEQA determination. And anytime CEQA is involved, it gets complex. So slow progress, but that's what I have to report. I think that's it. David, do you have anything to add? Talked real fast, didn't I? Sorry about that.
No, I don't at the moment, but I'm available.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the word soon is kind of hard for some people to swallow. And I think probably hats off to Supervisor Morris at this time for having the foresight to understand that 6 months wasn't probably going to do the trick when that was proposed, and she gave us that extra 90 days, which we are now in, and I'm pretty anxious that we'll meet that. Do you think soon is within 90 days?
We've discussed this, but I definitely would like David to come up and give his thoughts as well.
Again, David Colbeck, Senior Environmental Compliance Specialist. Thank you, Chair, Supervisors, Supervisor Cox. I would say yes, and I've said that before. And so, yes, I'm thankful for the additional time as Supervisor Morris had provided us with the urgency ordinance. So regarding the transition plan, I can say that I feel we can get that forward and present it to you. There is, of course, as Director Hunter mentioned, the other components of the plan. It's not the plan itself, but it's how it can actually operate. So again, please keep that in mind. I believe Director Hunter did a fine job describing that. I do want to point out some public comments that have occurred in previous meetings, I believe just at the beginning of last month, where there's sentiment that I think is worth mentioning here, that the board should consider the potential that the urgency ordinance needs to be continued or extended. That's not my preferred option personally, and where I stand as staff, but I think it's something that should be on the table for your consideration at the appropriate time. To clarify, I do plan on having the framework complete and to you as soon as I can at a time to be determined.
So I think that the public would feel really comfortable if they could, or maybe more comforted, if they could see maybe an outline, a skeleton of what's going on, because from our standpoint, I mean, from your standpoint, I get it. You see what's happening, and you're like, we're working really, really hard, and I feel you on that. From our standpoint, there's just this nebulous thing. So is there any portion of anything that could be presented to the public where they could see something?
Okay, thank you, Supervisor, for that question. You'll notice that the departmental recommendation here for this agenda item 5.2 today is provide direction to staff as necessary. So I hear what you're saying. I can say in my limited experience in government that in terms of the development of, say, an internal policy like this, that generally is incumbent upon staff to produce it and then present it to the appropriate deciding body, whether that's the commission or the board, of course. And at that point, then it can either move along or be revised based off of the board's recommendation. That being said, if staff is requesting something from the board, some direction from the board, then this would be an opportunity to do that. That could include some suggested structure for how an outline could be provided to the board and how direction can be given or otherwise interpreted by staff. I would like it to just be clear in what you're really looking to do and direct us appropriately.
So I'm not trying to direct you any differently from the standpoint that I don't want to be the cause of slowing something down because I put an extra to-do on your list. I'm trying to find that balance between answering constituent questions and the concerns that I'm receiving, bringing those to you, and sitting in the middle feeling like I don't really know what to demand. I don't want to demand. I want to be supportive of you. I'm nervous.
So I can say that you're likely expressing a sentiment that's common, not only in terms of the public, but perhaps, and I can't say this specifically, but to other board members as well. So, you know, my intentions say, or my thinking had been along the lines of producing the framework and bringing it to the board in terms of a resolution that would go through a standard political process of adopting a resolution where, of course, public comment is available. And again, at that time, whenever a resolution is heard by this board, you wish to continue it in order to receive more comment that is your purview. I would like to address something of you're not maybe necessarily pushing us or pushing me, say specifically, even I won't speak for the entire department, but it's not just you, Supervisor. I would suggest that if we were to receive a recommendation from you or staff, that it would come from the majority of this board. So it's not on any one individual supervisor. Again, I am happy to entertain any notion of how an outline could be presented to the public in a way that would allow staff to continue to operate in the direction that it sees is appropriate. Doing things in the public eye and in public committee can be difficult and very worthwhile. And those are just the realities of the political process and the timelines that we're facing. Apologies if that was vague, but again, I'm happy to entertain any specific staff recommendation.
So I think personally that I would like to see some sort of framework. I think it'd be positive for the public to see some. I don't know how that framework would look. But also I was wondering, what is your hesitation about extending the urgency ordinance timeline? And I'm not pro or con to that. I just want to know why, with the lack of staffing and all, I was staying with it. Not that I'm right or wrong on that.
No, I don't think we're opposed or discourage the idea. I think I'll step in and speak for both of us on this one. It just, we really, although soon is very ambiguous, we really are making progress towards getting this finished. And that is the hope. But as we know, and I know I've seen the last 2 years, it's good to have a backup plan because that ordinance, that urgency ordinance can cease once that transition plan is completed. And the fact that it's within, that the current urgency ordinance expires within the growing season would be very detrimental for our cultivators. So don't want to discourage that in any way. It's just we're really pushing to have the transition plan done. But a backup plan, not a bad thing. Does that answer your question, Supervisor Cody?
Yeah, somewhat.
Somewhat.
So what would you go for? A little extra 9 days, or are you going to stick with it?
I didn't expect that question. The panel says.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
I don't think you need to speculate.
So I have to say, for my part,
For the betterment of the
For my part, I
people.
would like not to answer that question right now, and to speculate about what that potential resolution, either for the adoption of the framework, transition plan framework, or the potential continuation of the urgency of the ordinance would look like, not at this moment.
We're asking them a question on how long are they going to have their portion finished. The urgency ordinance is going to have to encompass how long is it going to take the growers to complete. So we're hoping to get this done so the growers can start their process, which of course David has pointed out to the growers many times that they need to be doing what they can now. But this process could be easily extended to 3 years, is my viewpoint. And those are discussions we'll have at a later date with a lot of different input from different people. I worry when we're asking them to look at stuff partly completed. I don't mind having an outline or a date schedule when they think they can do things. But if we take raw data and bring this to the public, it causes a lot of rumors, it causes a lot of misunderstandings. So we have to be extremely cautious with that. I think, for example, CAO Coons came forward with a very rough draft plan, and then all of a sudden everybody decided that this was what was going to happen, and people started complaining about it when it was just more of an idea session. So I don't know exactly how it looks or when you would be satisfied, Jill and Liam, but if it's just a framework of timeline, I think that's fine, but I'd be cautious more.
I would be happy with the framework of timeline, just so we can have some milestones maybe we can hit and keep on schedule. I think that would be the best way for us and the public to know kind of where we're at. And anytime you tread into that transparency thing or bring it up to the public, there is going to be some scrutiny. It's going to be left to right of center. So I think we're all prepared for that. And I think you guys try your best, but I think to give myself, the board, and the public a little bit of awareness on where we're going, what the time frame is, would be good for all of us.
Are we allowed to comment on this item, Supervisors, as is an agendized item?
When it's opened up to the public, yes.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions from the board?
No, not from me.
All right, then we'll open up to public comment.
Thank you. Sorry for my excitedness about it. And I appreciate all the discussion and the understanding that we have 3 months until the expiration of this urgency ordinance. And it's not just, as Supervisor Gross stated, about getting a transition plan together, but it's about cultivators being able to comply with that transition plan. And though, speaking as a consultant for probably close to 150 people, we're working on it, we're getting it done, we're getting it going, doesn't mean that it wouldn't hurt us to have some sort of framework of when is this all going to really be necessary, right? Are there pieces that are going to be required before the whole thing's required? Biological assessments are required to be done in the spring. We're towards the end of that time, and we're still pushing to get assessments done, but not everybody understands that, even with the information on the website. An option of extending the urgency ordinance would guarantee that cultivators are not going to be hurt during their harvest season. We know miscommunication happens all the time with the planning department, with the sheriff's office, and that would be horrendous for the liability of this county to have something like that happen. We can't discount that it's not a possibility, because I've seen it 4 times in 4 years. I'm so happy to see the RFQ out. I'm really excited to see what consultants will take it. I think it's a huge step in the progress. RFQs do take months to finish up. The bidding process is not a short period of time. I'm not sure how quickly, if they've already started getting bites or not, how quickly we can even get those consultants on board to do what the missing, what needs to be done by the missing staff right now. That's just another concern of mine. Again, if it's presented by September, doesn't mean we have, I guess my biggest worry is coming out and say, okay, in 30 days, get this done, and 30 days, it's impossible to get done, especially for some people that might have to do bios next spring because we're already in the summer months. So I'm just a little confused why a transition plan would be a resolution when we have a final EIR and we have an amended ordinance, all the mitigations. I was under the impression a transition plan was just a framework of how we're going to review this. We have an ordinance, we have all the mitigations, and like I said, as a consultant with close to 150 people, we're prepping that many CEQA documents to cover the entire checklist, absolutely. So is a transition plan yet another ordinance that goes above the FEIR? Or is it simply the framework that we've been discussing, which is just a timeline? Again, I'm really terrified that August 9th, it's 30 days to get this done. And that's going to be impossible for a lot of people, not just people who represent a large number, but just for individuals to be able to write a comprehensive checklist, do everything that's required, and then also talk about what's the timeline in this transition plan for approving these documents by next season. This is going to be detrimental to the tax if we don't figure this out. I encourage an extension of the urgency ordinance as the backup plan now, and agendize it next meeting. Thank you so much.
Chris Hayford, I'll be quick, say all the points. To be clear, the inability for this department to operate in a timely manner with myself has cost literally $40,000 of taxes not coming to Trinity County this summer. For one, we just heard that there's 80-something licenses that are actually active licenses right now. Yay, I have one. 80 licenses. The new hire, one of the new hires of us, the three and a half staff members, I believe was released from a consulting group here in Trinity County for not being able to do this type of work effectively. So it's good we're still part of the course of our hiring in this county. There's 220-something or ballpark extended licenses. What is the progress with these? It's great we've given out extensions to them that I know some people fought tooth and nail to get, which I believe has bogged this department down for some months now. People getting denied and getting them. What's the update on those? We're 3 months out from the end of the urgency ordinance. How is there no ETA for a transition plan? I think that it is beyond crucial for this board to have a special meeting or to have whatever, even if it's just asking the 16, 17 license holders who have been sitting through this entire process to come in and give you guys a grip of reality on what's really going on out here. I had a conversation with Supervisor Frazier in the gas station this morning, and his comment was, I literally helped write some of these laws, and I don't know where half the stuff came from. There is a massive disconnect between reality and what's really going on and this program. I think I've been in this program for 6 years, and we're no farther along than we were 6 years ago. There's no ad hoc committee, there's no community outreach. There's damn near no way to get a response from the planning department. You go in to pay for something or do for something, you're told you need to set an appointment, you send an email or a phone call, you don't ever get back to the appointment. There are consultants who have, sent an affidavit saying that, I'm sorry, I cannot help you because you are in Trinity County and I cannot get a response from the Trinity County Planning Department. This is insane. You hear about it affecting the rest of the departments and the rest of the county. We are talking about a maximum, if this entire program was full, of 500 businesses. If 500 businesses are crumbling the county and crumbling what's going on here, I don't think that it's the businesses, because Lord knows that all the cannabis farmers, the limited amount of this program is doing, is fighting tooth and nail to be allowed to cultivate, be allowed to pay taxes, and be allowed to stay licensed for more than 1 year at a time. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on Zoom?
I have no raised hands and no chats.
Unless there's any additional discussion or comments from the board, we'll move on. Seeing none, hearing none, we move on to the next item. Item 5.3, uphold, modify, or overturn the planning commission's decision to deny the renewal of a commercial cannabis license for Hearst Family Farms LLC on assessor's parcel number 024-680-32-00. Licensee appellant, Hearst Family Farms, CCL number 46, no fiscal impact or fiscal impact unknown. As I hold a valid commercial cannabis license cultivation, I'll be recusing on this item. And Supervisor Frazier will be taking over.
Excuse me, real quick before you recuse, I just want to clarify, what's direction given regarding that last item?
The framework of it, the time.
From the supervisor.
I would like to give direction for a framework, the timeline of that framework.
I think people just want to see what the definition of soon is.
Okay. The appellant of Hearst Family Farms, LLC, now represented by Mary Kellyanne Hearst.
Could you move closer to the mic?
Yes.
The appellant, Hearst Family Farms, represented by Mary Kellyanne Hearst, have appealed the Planning Commissioner's decision to deny the appeal of the Planning Director's decision. The Planning Commission's decision to deny the appeal of the Planning Director's decision. To deny the 2020 renewal application for commercial cannabis license 046. Alec Hearst submitted a renewal application for CCL 046 on August 24, 2020. This license had been in the program since 2016. Upon review of the application and file, I denied the renewal application due to non-compliance with provisions of Trinity County Code Section Chapter 1743, which is the Commercial Cannabis Cultivation Ordinance. A letter of denial was sent via certified mail on September 17, 2020 to Alec Hearst, detailing the reasons of the application denial. Mr. Hearst then filed an appeal requesting a reversal of the director's decision on September 18, 2020. Citing issues with consultants with whom he contracted with and a motorcycle accident that prevented him from performing the duties of his business. On August 20, 2020, a citation was issued by the Trinity County Sheriff's Office for excessive cultivation and lack of fencing at 30 Shasta View Lane, which is the site of the cultivation for license 046. Unfortunately, Alex passed away. He filed an appeal on September 18, 2020, an appeal of the planning director's decision to deny the application renewal. Alex passed away on October 20, 2020, and his mom is now representing the Hearst Family Farms, LLC. This appeal, P-20-43, was heard by the Planning Commission on March 11, 2021. At that meeting, staff was directed to provide additional background information, and the item was continued to April 8, 2021. At the April 8th meeting, the Planning Commission voted to deny the appeal based on the information that was presented by staff. Staff recommends denial of this appeal based on the following: the factors listed in my letter to Alec Hearst on September 17, 2020, which included cultivation without a valid and current state and county license, cultivation without an approved variance for the 150-foot cultivation setback from a nearby residence. And based on information obtained with code enforcement cited the property on August 20th, 2020. Also, as presented in the April 8th Planning Commission staff report, we did receive confirmation from CDFA Cal Cannabis that they have no record of a state cultivation license being issued to Hearst Family Farms, Alec-Hurst, or for APN 024-680-32, except for the temporary cultivation license issued in 2018. If you have any questions that I can answer.
Any questions? Okay, I see no questions from the board.
May I ask just some procedural questions as the appellant's representative in this matter today? How much time do I get? And then it opens up the public comment. I think in planning commission hearings recently, it's been 10 minutes and then public comment. I just wanted to clarify that before I started.
Yeah, lately we've been doing 10 minutes.
Great. I hope to not take that much time, but it'd be good to know my time.
Yeah, you, as the representative of the appellant, will give you 10 minutes.
I did print out 10 copies. I know for this appeal, I brought binders down, and I know they all got scanned in to the staff report. Thank you so much, Emma. I'm so sorry about that. We were directed for the planning commission meeting to have them as binders. So, but there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of things going on. So what I wanted to do was break it down for you. I have packets for everybody. There's 10 of them to follow procedure. And I really am highlighting the letter that I wrote on March 30th for the April 8th meeting. I was not a representative at the March meeting that got continued to April. I was pretty shocked at the April meeting when I was very prepared to discuss with the commission this case and was basically given a directed verdict by Chair Stewart, not allowing any public comment, even though it was a continued item where individuals should be able that didn't speak before speak again. I was denied that opportunity, and so I do want to lean on this letter that I was going to present that night because of that denied opportunity. So to bring it back to the issues around non-compliance and kind of the history of our program here in Trinity County. Florida has been a part of this since 2018. And in the years that I've been working here on several different types of cases, whether abatements are issued, renewals are late, et cetera, case-by-case basis, we're able to work this out with the departments. COVID was a huge issue last year, as we know, for our county due to that urgency ordinance that was presented to help them. It was also a huge issue for a lot of people as licensees. So I do just want to walk through this real quick. To just start with a timeline coming from Alex's family's point of view and what he would give you today if he were here. First of all, this is a license that's been in this program since 2016. One of the first, the 046, I believe was his number, one of the first 100 issued. Now, in 2019, there was the beginning of a transition of this cultivation license to a micro-business license. Under the micro-business ordinance, once you do that transition, the micro-business license is now just your license. There's no cultivation extra renewal component to it. Additionally, under the micro-business ordinance, there's an opportunity to do what's called a director's use permit instead of a conditional use permit. Meaning if you meet certain qualifications of really, it's around employees and traffic usage, then you can go straight to the director with your application and not have to go through the conditional use permit process. I was not consultant at the time that this was happening, but I do understand that that was something that was in progress according to Alex's family as well as those consultants that were helping him in 2019 transition that in. So during this transition and through many pieces of this binder, sections 18 and 19 are going to be the sections where correspondence of working on this project and transitioning this project were had with the county, including correspondence last year when things started to go awry. During last summer and this transition of moving it from a cultivation license to a microbusiness license, it was communicated that transition was in progress, so Mr. Hurst did not renew his 10,000 square foot license at the time. I want to remind you at the time there was also no policy against not being able to reinstate your renewal yet. And also there was no official urgency ordinance issued to give the official no new applications prohibition. So at that time, he's presented with an opportunity to either pay $6,000 and then pay even more money when that microbusiness license is approved, or under understanding and good faith from the director herself, if the microbusiness license is approved, why would he spend an extra $6,000 on a cultivation license that's just about to be incorporated into a different one? So that explains during that time why he had not yet paid that renewal fee. I also want to point out that pursuant to Trinity County Ordinance 315, or pursuant to Trinity County Ordinance, that when it comes to renewing your license and paying that renewal fee, it is not like the first time we do it. The first time you submit a new application, you pay $2,500 to submit the application, and then you pay the remainder $3,500 annually after that. Once a license is determined to be ready to be issued, you pay your $6,000. At no point in time, even after Alec went ahead and turned in a paper renewal for that 10,000 square foot garden, just to make sure that he was staying, again, via communication in compliance with his license, he was never told his license was ready to pick up quite yet. The abatement happened in between the denial of the license and as what happened with another one of my clients last summer. Once you cure an abatement, as this license did, and proof of that I believe is the second section 5 in that binder, or section 7. Once you do that, you can get back into the program. If you follow the abatement protocols, you abate in 7 days, you go through that process. That happened with one of my clients last summer. We got it back into the program, and that's another example of how other licensees are able to work with the department, especially ones that have held licenses for so long. But Mr. Hurst wasn't told until August 20th, 2020, that he had his license available and ready for pickup and payment at the planning department. That same day was the day that he got abated. So I mentioned during the transition plan comment about miscommunication being rampant. This is just another example. Additionally, before that September 17th letter was issued to deny the license, there was no notice to cure for 7 days for Alec to cure any deficiencies given by the department as required by the ordinance. If there were deficiencies pointed out to why he couldn't stay in this program, to why he couldn't have not only a cultivation license renewed, but transition to a microbusiness license, we could have taken care of that in 7 days. But nothing was followed in that manner. Now, I've been at planning commission meetings before where a notice was not properly given, and they won on that fact. So procedurally alone, this appeal should be granted. Let's bring it back to the fact of good faith compliance of trying to work with the department before, as the attempts and the coordination were being strung along throughout the summer, and then all of a sudden in September being given that denial letter, it was a shock to him. I remember Alec coming into my office, I remember talking to him about it, and I urged him to file the appeal. Unfortunately, he is not with us today. He is very much missed by all of us, including his mother, who is here today to try to fight to get this license back. This is a family farm, and their family is here to get this back into compliance. One of the very few early farms that were doing their best to stay in it. Taking into consideration COVID, other things going on in Alec's life, like his motorcycle accident, like his sister getting really, really ill, family comes first to all of us here in Trinity County. And I know that for the fact for all of you sitting on this board right now. We are here to bring people in to help them succeed in their businesses. We only have 500 opportunities for these farmers. My ask for you today is to look at the procedural defects first of this denial. Second, look at the ongoing good faith that Mr. Hurst had while he was trying to become compliant. And third, reach into your hearts and think about a family that's just really trying to further their memory of a son, of a brother. And right this wrong, because we have no other opportunities in this board today to do so. And it would be in the best interest of Trinity County and to set a precedence, I'm sorry, not to set a precedence, to continue on the precedence that was set, to allow this license back into the program. Again, there was no policy not being able to reinstate renewals at the time this happened. There was no notice to cure deficiencies. If things were properly followed, we wouldn't have this conversation right now, and Al might still be with us today. So, thank you very much for your time, supervisors. I appreciate your consideration that I was not given on April 8th to present this. And again, I believe in Trinity County. I believe in the job that I do. I believe in the people that I represent, because I believe that 500 opportunities to bring a family farm into the legal market is something we should always, always, always support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, with that, I think we can open this item up to public comment. And Emma, I can't see you, so will you let me know if you have anything on Zoom?
I have no new chats and no raised hands, so we can go into the room.
All right.
I'll probably ask for a few extra minutes if I need it. I am Jake Russell Christopher Hayfork. I am 49% owner of First Family Farms, and I was sadly present for damn near all of this, and the last person who talked to Al before he passed away. Today the loaded word in this whole meeting has been soon. Now, Al was the type of guy who didn't want to text you, he didn't want to talk on the phone with you, he didn't want to talk in person, which I respected as a business partner, because I think everybody in this room knows a lot gets lost with technology. You sit down, face to face, eye to eye, you work through it. He refused to do the majority of this except in person. He would go to the planning department with his briefcase, with everything, he would go meet in person. He was denied the ability to even communicate for a large part of this with the planning department, to the point that I personally started a text thread with CAO Coons and with Al, reaching out in desperation to get some sort of movement, because we were planting. We were planting plants with metric tags from a licensed nursery in California through a licensed distributor. Now it says there was no license, but that's funny because there's a state distribution license on that property. It got to the point that I begged Richard Coons and said, dude, something's got to happen. This kid's been working for a year to get to transition to his micro business. Everybody that's been part of the program knows he's the guy saying, I want a micro business, I want a family farm. I said, the county has been saying, soon we'll have this done, soon we'll have you processed, soon this will be done. I said, it's planting time, we need like a provisional license or something until Kim can get this sorted out and do that. Through Richard's help, Mary Beth stepped in and helped get this ball rolling. And in fact, the last words that I had heard from Mary Beth with regards to this were through tears saying, Al never should have lost his license. This never should have been an issue and he'd still be here. I got 2 calls on the day that Al was supposed to be picking up his license. The first call was from him saying, hey man, I screwed up, I forgot they don't take cash at planning. The girls at the front desk sent me up to go to my bank here in Weaverville and get a check. The next call I got was from one of our guys up on the hill that said, hey, Barcelona's here, abating the property. He then got a phone call back from the planning department saying, hey, Kim let us know that she wants to talk to you about your license before she issues it to you. I believe this is maybe on Wednesday or Thursday. So, can you come back in next week and schedule a time to talk to her? He said, sure, give me my license. I'll come back and talk to her anything I want. Well, they abated us. Kim then said, sorry, we're not accepting any new applications. So your micro-business application is thrown out even though he's been working on it for a year with the county. And you didn't renew your cultivation license, so that's been taken and thrown away.
Your time's up. Thank you.
I can't get a couple more minutes. I've watched about 1,000 people get this over the last 6 years in front of this board. And I just waited through your entire meeting for this. And was denied public comment.
Mr. Chair, I would ask you to grant a couple more minutes because the spokesman did not take her 10 minutes. That's just my request. You do what you want.
Or I was going to ask Emma, do we have anybody else looking to speak at this time?
I have no new chats and no raised hands.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's a lot of people waiting in line, so go ahead. We'll give you a couple more minutes.
So through the abatement process, Al trusted the sheriff's department. He sat down multiple times with Barcelona in person, and he was told, hey, I know you're working through this with the planning department. Just work through this process. We're not going to cut you down. Just work through the process. You may have to pay some fines, but you'll get your license straightened out. In fact, up until the day he came up to cut down the garden, he told him, we're not going to cut you down. Work through this. You'll have your chance at an appeal. You'll have your chance at this. Here we are with the appeal, what, a year later? The 3 reasons the license was taken: cultivation without a valid state license or county license. Soon we'll have that. Soon. Coming to pay. Expired county commercial cannabis license. Soon we'll have that. Cultivation without an approved 350-foot cultivation setback variance from nearest residents. That's another licensed farm, first of all. Second of all, this is news to all of us. And I don't believe that it's on the licensee to come set up a date for a variance. And if there's a kiosk somewhere we can pick up a variance, I'd love to grab a couple of them. That would be great. This issue and Al's passing and the taking of his license outlines virtually every major problem with this program with the planning department. We're being put in a position where our hands are tied and there's absolutely nothing we can do, to the point of reaching out to the CAO to help manage his staff. And we were told by the planning department, or by the planning commission, the bottom line is, if you don't have a license, you should not have plants in the ground. So is it up to the county to reach out to the state and say, sorry, we weren't able to renew this license? They're not lying to you. They actually destroyed all of their metric plants, and hopefully they can try again next year? Or are we supposed to keep operating in good faith and hope that the sheriff's department doesn't come abate us, and that eventually, or should we say soon, Kim will be able to process renewal or transition us to a micro-business license? These are all questions that literally weigh on every single licensee's shoulders. I can tell you as somebody who was with Al on the last night, if he had this license, he'd be alive. He had everything taken from him. His biggest concern was that he didn't know how he was going to pay his mortgage and take care of his mother. He's the only partner I've ever had in my life that sat me down and introduced me to their parent and said, if something doesn't work out, if something happens, you have to keep this going for my mom. You have to deal with my mother, you have to do this. That's why I'm here. Because I gave him my word as his partner that I would do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also encouraged any questions because there should be a lot of questions about this.
Any other public comment?
I have no new chats and no raised hands.
No one in the lobby. Okay, with that, we will bring it back to the board. Questions from the board?
I do have some questions, if that's okay with you, Joe.
Sure.
The spokesman is...
We can both answer probably.
Did you guys have a county distribution license?
There was no county distribution license in my search records. From what I understand, again, as not the consultant that prepared all of his licenses, but as somebody who's stepping in now, is his previous consultant assumed he had his micro-business license and started to get the distribution and other portions of it without fully submitting after the state temporary estate license. So again, we're not questioning the abatement itself. The abatement was solved, it was cured, it's past that. Really what I'm questioning is, in the history of this program, if we have a history of acting in good faith and working together on things before hard denials are sent out and things are just cut off without any explanation, shouldn't we continue on that good faith trajectory that we do with other licensees with this one? And this one was on that trajectory when that final swoop came down and the denial happened a month after the abatement, even though the abatement was cured.
But the only valid state license he had was distribution, correct?
His CDFA one was prepped and ready to go. Again, the previous consultants were confused about what licenses he had in hand.
So we have an active state distribution license on that property, which, to be clear, was only issued because of inactivity from the planning department to not provide or deny local authorization.
So the point of it is the CDFA.
Hang on, let's follow up on that. But a distribution license doesn't allow you to grow unless I'm...
No, a distribution license, though, is required for the micro business license.
Right.
And what my point of bringing that up, I don't know if you guys physically saw the binders. They're maybe twice as thick as this with all the, okay, we have it. So my point of bringing this up is there was no lack of effort or lack of, I don't want to say lack of licensing, because there was a lack of licensing, but it's not due to Al's faults. There was, that binder represents the fact that there is nothing possible, and I truly mean this when I say, there is nothing else Al could have possibly done to get this license. There are two options. He should have wasted the $6,000 and renewed his cultivation license and had no faith that this department would have been able to follow their word. If you read through the emails in there from Kim herself, it says, we're working on this, this should be done shortly. He was told to come in and pay and pick up his license. So, my question is, if that binder doesn't represent, like, what work could somebody do but quite literally hold somebody captive and say, sign this license right now?
So, now what other two licenses was he going to get to do the micro business?
I believe it was manufacturing and non-storefront retail, I want to say.
This is non-volatile manufacturing. You wanted to press.
So but you're making your case that he was almost there to his micro license, but did you guys have a CUP done on those two?
It's not necessary if you qualify for a director's use permit, which you did.
Yeah, okay.
And he did, and that's why he submitted a director's use permit to planning, and that was processing at the same time.
I didn't see that application in the...
It's in page, I think it's section 20 of it. I was just reviewing the binder before. Hold on.
Admittedly, there's a lot in there to absorb.
I read the whole thing, but I don't remember.
Totally.
I hope you don't.
I think bottom line of this again is when we're faced with a license that wasn't complying, attempted to be in compliance, was ongoing with those attempts. As a consultant, I found that we were able to all work together on this. In this case, the good faith working together, I guess, was ongoing until that just straight up denial happened. So if a state license was a deficiency to this license to be able to issue a renewal, then issue that as a deficiency with a 7-day notice to cure. In 7 days, you can make sure you get proof of payment that a CDFA application is submitted. If it was a building permit that was expired, in 7 days, we can cure that. So that's what I want to lean on right now is the history of him attempting to comply. I can't speak for the other consultants that were working for him. I can only speak for myself and what I see here. And what I see here is somebody that was trying really hard and a county that wasn't following their own ordinance when it comes to, before you just issue a denial, you have to tell them, here's what we're having issues with. You have 7 days to cure this, and if you don't, then yeah, we're going to revoke your license. That to me makes sense.
To be clear, Al compiled this binder before passing away.
I read that.
And as another active licensee, and most of my friends are licensees, I don't know I don't think anybody besides Nicholas Holiday that could present this much paperwork supporting their license period, and he has 7 state licenses in Trinity County.
Another thing to note that I didn't mention before was the notice in July of this license that was to be approved. So it went through the proper noticing as well. No comments from CEQA were submitted.
And that letter, if you look at it, will be issued.
The microbusiness application is under the second section 5, Supervisor Groves. The second section 5, if that makes sense. So there's there's a lot.
So that what we call B5 in our...
Yeah, I would say so. And of course, opportunities like this to bring a licensed app into compliance can also have conditions to it, such as proof that the CDFA application is submitted and pending, such as any other deficiencies that the county department would find. We're happy to help correct. My point is notice was never given before the denial.
I can tell you no one's ever put metric tags on plants in an unpermitted garden.
Well, somebody illegally sold them, obviously.
No.
It was abated, they got cut down.
No,
that's not what I said.
The metric transfer was done to the distribution license.
Through his nursery license?
To his distribution license.
From illegal nursery license to a distribution license.
Which was the solution because we were told that soon.
But he didn't have a permit to be a distribution.
No, there was a temporary,
not within the county.
The microbusiness application was still processing with the county last summer, but he had a valid state license. You can't get a valid state license without it going through county.
Yeah, distribution license.
Right.
Correct.
And the transfer was legally sent to the distribution license.
But
Which if the county does not respond in X number of days, it immediately is approved by the state.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that it wasn't a valid state license.
Right.
It would have been in the 90 days or whatever, but within that period.
But again, I think the point I'm trying to make today is regardless of the mishappenings with whatever license he applied for instead of a different license at the state, regardless of the abatement that was cured, we still have opportunities at that time to issue a notice of deficiencies and to bring it back into compliance. I've had multiple clients that have been issued abatements. We clear the abatements, we get them back into the program. There is precedence already set.
Is the point to bring people into compliance and get licensed businesses here, or is the point to try to weed out people who are trying to be licensed? Because I can tell you there's more money and way less assay than illegal cultivation in Trinity County. It's probably one of the best in the game right now. And we got 80 good licenses in the county. 5,000 illegal grows. I mean, Keith, you've been here since day one. You're one of the originals that said, let's do this.
Yeah. I'm trying to hear you out, Jay.
I know.
I really am, but please don't. I know you're frustrated
And just stick with answering the questions instead of further public comment, please. Do you have?
So I don't have any
questions?
more right at this time, but I'm going to read through this.
All right.
Anybody else have
Other supervisors, any questions for the consultant or for staff? Clarification?
So I do have one. On June 26th, on the cannabis license, he does say that I acknowledge I cannot cultivate cannabis without both a Trinity County and state license.
Keith, what number are you on?
This is under their B5 of the section, and it's the license renewal.
6/24/19.
No, I just have, well, in their big binder, you have a big binder?
Yeah.
It's under the second 5.
Yeah, it's under acknowledgement form. Sign on 6/24/19.
Yes.
The bold print there.
Yep.
Keith, what is this you're looking at? Sorry.
This is under the cannabis license renewal under the second number 5.
The pink, the white pink 5.
And that's just part of the checkoff, general checkoff of this.
Are you talking about the acknowledgement form?
Yes.
Are we opening the conversation to due process?
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't. So, I was just making a comment that he did sign off and say that he needed to have a license.
Can I respond to that?
It's up to the chair.
Can you respond in very few words?
Yes. I have 2 emails. I don't have them on me. I have 1 email from Richard Coons, and I have 1 email from Leslie Hubbard at the end of her tenure that both state, because of the backlog of work in the planning department, if you have paid your 17-18 renewal and you were a 16-17 license, that receipt is as good as your license. That receipt means you are in good standing and good to go. So I'm not saying that is an exact applicable thing here. I'm saying that if we want to start holding people accountable to an actual checklist, it's going to get real ugly for the county because there is no accountability and there hasn't been anything. We're flip-flopping all the way, and the best thing we can do is hold people to intentions. If you're trying your hardest, I can tell you if you gave Al a checklist of things he needed to do to keep his license or to get it compliant, it would be done. That was never done. He was never told, do this, do that. He was told, come in and pay and pick up your license. He came in.
All right, thank you. Do we have any further questions of the consultant or staff?
So Jake, if that is all true there, why would he sign on the, what was that, June 24th of 19, an acknowledgement form saying, I acknowledge that I cannot cultivate cannabis?
Because if you don't sign this, you're never going to get your license. We're sitting at the whim of the planning department, and if you don't do anything that they say, whether it's a law or a code or not, then you're not going to get your license. And he was doing everything humanly possible to the point of having to reach out to the CAO. If he had said, sorry, Kim, I'm not signing that because I'm in this tough spot you put me in, well, God, that's not going to get anywhere. She already went and talked to him.
So under his, let's see, this would be the second number 2, the cannabis distributor license application.
I'm there.
Okay, so question 11. Do you have evidence of the CEQA compliance or exemption? Was there evidence of that?
Yeah. So in 2019, when this was applied for, we had an exemption under CEQA. So that was our exemption. The whole program did. The whole program had an exemption under CEQA until the 2020 season when.
For a distributor?
For everybody in the cannabis program.
No, not for distributor.
Every ordinance, if you look back on it, Supervisor Groves has at the bottom exempt from CEQA on it.
No, there was a CUP that was.
Again, this was a director's use permit, so under the microbusiness application at the county level, it wouldn't have fallen under a conditional use permit qualifications. So an MND wouldn't have been developed at the time, and still the state has an exemption over CEQA, though the county doesn't recognize it. The county was recognizing exemptions under CEQA, so that would answer that question.
So you're saying, okay, you're saying that since this is a state application, that there is a state exemption.
I won't go into semantics of the state exemption and it not applying to Trinity County. I disagree with that. the state of California has issued an exemption to CEQA for cannabis licensees right now through this summer. And at that time, in 2019, that was in existence.
At the state.
At the state level, again, I'm not going to argue with you.
We can agree.
Level. We can agree to disagree.
Neither one of us are lawyers. You're working on it, so.
I'm close.
But the sentiment behind this being a director's use permit for micro business was that these are the smallest, this is a little bit of the smallest of each license, and that we didn't need to bog down what took us 3 years to get a CUP for arguably some of the smallest licenses in the county with the smallest impacts.
So yeah, under the micro license, I believe that they can't have more than 3 employees, and there's issues. I didn't see any of that evidence in here, but I guess that would come.
State distribution license is required with the micro business.
If that's part of your micro business, yes.
Right, again, when I'm talking on a county level, but would it have an exemption to state a director's permit or not? And at that point, he didn't have a director's permit.
It was in process as the county kept telling him soon it would be ready to go.
And come in and pick it up. He was told to
The distributor license one?
So he prepped, as many people do, they prep their state applications because of the long process it takes at the county level. They prep them ready to go so that they can jump right into it. And I'm going to answer your question. So the micro business application was pending in 2020 when this was all happening. He was prepping everything else to get a distribution license in place for that. So that would explain why he had a state license and not yet a county license. That's happened. I mean, I have clients right now that have state cultivation licenses in no county because they went ahead and they prepared themselves for the opportunity to start using both together. In this instance, Al was told time after time, we're almost there to transition you to this micro business. And then when all that happened, it was all of a sudden, now you have nothing.
Also, how can we expect farmers to be knowing the difference between the semantics? One of the most experienced supervisors here in the ad hoc and her.
Can we stick to answering questions instead of asking them at this point? Thank you. Any more questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe?
No.
No questions of staff either?
Well, I think staff should have an opportunity to counter anything that they've heard that they disagree with.
Director Hunter, would you like rebuttal?
Will we get a chance to rebuttal, Director Hunter? As the appellant?
She's not doing a rebuttal.
She's
just answering questions.
Yeah, we'll let her answer questions that came up, and I actually will maybe have questions for staff also. So.
First thing I want to comment on is that this was not an active license. It was a renewal application. Picking up the file and getting the information, I saw that a license had expired, and that in December, and that it had not been renewed, and looked at the information in the file and denied the application. How you cure an application, it's not an active license. How you cure an application issue that's already over 6 months expired was the issue I was looking at. Also, not having a variance. Variances aren't things you come pick up. Variances are things that are issued by the Planning Commission. That the applicant would have been notified that a variance was needed. Do I have proof that that occurred? I do not know, but when I picked up the file, a variance was needed. It is first with the Planning Commission, issued by the Planning Commission, and their after that is issued, then it's a director's use permit thereafter for the 350-foot cultivation setback. Regarding the authorization for the distribution, I was not the local contact at that point. I was not the, there was quite a backlog, so I can't speak to the authorization for the state distribution license. I can say that I did not authorize staff to alert Alec that his license was ready to pick up. During that time in 2020, we were backlogged, and we were doing mass notifications for licenses coming up for renewal. We were in panic mode. I was new to the cannabis program, so licenses were noticed that weren't approved for renewals. It's a messy program, and that happened. So yes, it was noticed. Was a license ever signed? No. Was a license ever issued that was signed? No. And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions you have.
Any questions to staff?
I guess I would have a question of county council at this point. What is the legal implication of that notice being erroneously sent out and realizing that was an error? Is that a mistake that's just, what's the level of problem with that kind of an error?
So it's an error. The issue is whether the license was issued or not. And what I'm hearing from the testimony today is that no license was ever issued. So yes, it was a mistake, but it was not one that's relevant for this determination.
I have a question. I'd like some clarification on Director Hunter. I know we've heard from the consultant that they should have been given 7 days to solve their issues, and I'm assuming that the reason that wasn't done is because there was no license on
Correct.
the cultivation, so they
It
were.
wasn't a revocation, it was a denial.
And I mean, and for the abatement part too, when they were abated, was it because there was no license to cultivate on the property? Or was
I
it?
can't speak for code enforcement.
Okay.
That's not under my department or my jurisdiction.
Okay. Supervisor Groves, you look like you have a question built in over there.
No, I think I answered my own question here. It's a very complex issue, obviously.
Any questions?
Kevin, at the time they were abated, their license was out of compliance by 6 months or so?
Yes, it expired in December of 2019.
And again, the reason that the application was denied was, remind me? I had written down here that it was an application that was denied.
It was a renewal application.
And why was the renewal application denied?
It's in the letter of September 17th. I'd be happy to read that to you.
Thank you.
Oh, I know. Thank you.
Why was the medical business denied?
Any other questions, staff? Before we move on, I guess, what is the process for transitioning from one license type to another? And can you explain what was going on there with the transition from cultivation to micro business?
The micro business was still being processed.
So,
Still there, we have transfers, we have a lot going on. Transfers are taking, we're trying to speed that process up, but, there's transition signs that are needed and staff to process those.
thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any further.
It's important to note that in a micro business, you have to have the setbacks also. That you can get a director's use permit if you meet 2 qualifications, but it's not really stated in his permit that that's one way or the other, or not his permit, his application.
Are you talking about the variance?
Yeah, and that is something I wanted to mention, the variance, regardless of what that house, I mean, if it's a permitted residence, regardless if it's another grow site or not, it's another residence. So the
Point of order, the variance was never noticed to the applicant, so how should he have known that that was necessary?
Well, once again, it's not point of order.
Anyway, the comment was made that it was another grow, the code reads another residence. So the variance would apply whether it was another cultivation site or not.
You see the notice?
All right, so with that, I think we can bring it back to the board. Would anyone care to make the motion so we could enter into further discussion?
Well, to get this moving, I'll move to uphold the planning commission's decision to deny.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
And obviously, there's 1,000 mistakes in this on all sides. I will note that in section 12, the previous consultant, wrote, as I'm sure you know, this property and project are more complicated with the site. I want to be aware of that. I don't expect the process to be necessarily straightforward. So I mean, there was obviously warnings that this project had problematic issues. And I really have problems with only having a state distribution license and kind of seems to be not a proper crooked way to go around, or not a proper try to go around. And I don't, but I had somebody else speak, I'm still not formulating coherent thoughts.
Okay, Richard. There's a cricket as you were talking about crickets.
Okay.
So I did read all of this.
Actually walking across the floor?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Or the budget's bad these days.
Any other discussion besides cricket wrangling?
Yeah. Just another day in the board. No, I just feel that I have a lot of sympathy here. The applicant made a lot of mistakes. And I don't know if were intentional or was working hard or didn't have the right advice. I don't see how we can kind of overturn what our ordinance is.
So I would like to say I did read all of this, and it is very complex. I would like to, first of all, start off saying sorry that you lost a friend and a son over something. The things that were done wrong throughout the scope of this thing. And some of them are hard to overlook. And he didn't have a license at the time. Unfortunately, I think that I would uphold this also.
Supervisor Cox.
I too would echo, I'm very sorry for your loss. This is a plethora of information. It's a lot of information over a lot of time, a lot of moving parts. I would say from my perspective that I'm not comfortable with, I like things neat and tidy. I like ABCD.
We all know that.
I wish that that were the case, but I also have a regard for A, B, C, and D have to be done before E, F, and G get to be done. And so when I read that there was cultivation before that license was issued, then that leaves me in a space where I don't feel like there's enough for me to overturn a planning director's decision. I guess I would have to ask one question of county council. If you feel that you are comfortable with the facts supporting the conclusion that the appeal should be denied, I'm going to just lean on you legally a little bit.
So that's ultimately your decision. I can't tell you what how to see on that. You have to make the decision going forward. I have reviewed it, and I did concur with the director's decision.
Okay. And I'm not trying to put you in a spot where I'm making you make my decision for me. That's not my intent. It's that I want to make sure that legally I'm not missing something that I should have connected dots on. So thank you for that. And so while this is not enjoyable for anybody, I don't find it enough for me to overturn both our planning commission and our planning director.
Personally, I see a lot of hard work that went into this appeal, well documented, and I appreciate the work that went into it from the consultant. I see it looks like one of the biggest issues here is we have Director Hunter and Flowery trying to fix problems that occurred before they were involved, and so it's this is a very complex issue. I think that we're a little difficult to know the perfect way to go here. So, barring any further discussion from the subsequent motions to the board.
And before the board votes, are we looking to do written findings on this?
Yes.
I would recommend that, yes, which means we would like to, the board would have to articulate in their motion the grounds for denial, and we can write that up, or at the board's pleasure, you can ask us to write it up and bring it back to the next meeting.
Could you clarify what that is for us non-lawyers?
Yeah.
Written findings, the reason for
Writing it down instead of just.
I've just never heard that before ever, like, because you know you'll see us in court, so.
That's why she's doing
usually findings are.
What are we going to tell the 220 pending renewals?
So anyway.
Are they not on here, some of those before?
That's the question. That's the problem here.
Would you like to add findings to your motion? Or?
Yes, but I would, in the motion, I would like to have council write findings and bring them to us as soon as possible.
At our next meeting?
Next meeting.
All right, so you have amended your motion. Do you want to amend your second also?
So meaning that how do we vote on something that we're not looking at the actual motion? Don't we need to see the findings first?
Yes, you'll be voting to send it to me to deny it, hold the decisions, and provide written findings. Those will come back to you, and you will vote on that, and those will be the official findings.
Okay, then yes, I would amend my second to support asking for those findings to be written and returned.
And I read them based on what I heard you say today and the notes I took, but you have an opportunity to amend them when they come back before you make sure they are exactly how we like them.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any subsequent motion? Seeing none, Emma, would you poll the board?
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, can we call
Yeah, somebody text her.
our chairman back in? Does anybody know where Jeremy is?
She said, can we take a 10-minute break and be here?
Should we just move forward without him and decide whether we want to go into closed session or whether you guys want to break for lunch?
We do still have to hear items 7.
Oh, we do still have 7.1. I forgot about that. I didn't write that down on my phone. So,
I think we could probably do that since he's the one that submitted it, right?
Jill submitted this, didn't she?
I did.
So, if you guys are comfortable with that, moving
I
forward.
don't see this as
I
controversial.
don't think it's that controversial of an issue, so as long as there's no legal reason why we can't. All right, then we will move forward with item 7.1. Jill, you're our contact on this, so would you like to?
I would, can I just do a motion?
Well, we're going to have to open it up to public comment, but would you like to tell us what this is all about?
Basically, I'm just going to read the letter that goes with this.
Pat Frost was available if you have questions as well.
Thank you. The Trinity County Board of Supervisors has received a recommendation from the Trinity County Collaborative Group to support the draft environmental assessment for the Trinity County Collaborative Pilot Roads and Plantations Project. The collaborative voted unanimously to support the project, which is the result of extensive work between the Trinity County Collaborative Group and the Shasta Trinity National Forest. The proposed project is located on the South Fork Management Unit and will implement thinning, burning, and road work that are intended to reduce wildfire hazards on approximately 4,000 acres adjacent to the Indian Valley and Butler Creek roads, along with plantations found adjacent to those roads. Treatment would improve forest health, protect late succession forest, create safer access for firefighting and evacuation, and provide economic opportunities for surrounding communities. It is the hope of the Trinity County Collaborative Group and the Board of Supervisors that this pilot project will become the template for expanding the pace and scale of similar roadside and plantation projects throughout the Trinity County side of the National Forest. We look forward to seeing the project's prompt implementation once the decision document has been signed. And therein would be my support, anything that reduces wildfire hazard risk, I'm up for.
Okay, well, we will open public comment on item 7.1. Emma, do we have any public comment?
I do not have any raised hands, and I do not have any new chats. I believe we are good to go. Is there anyone in the lobby with public comment on this item? Seeing none? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll bring it back to the board.
Except one person.
I make a motion to accept 7.1 as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
We are on the subsequent, Chairman.
Although I would request Chair not to vote on this since he missed the discussion.
Sounds good.
All right, so, Emma, will you pull board?
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Chairman Brown. It's all yours.
All right. I believe what, closed session?
Session and public comment.
All right.
Is this a long closed session?
4 hours.
4 hours. Well, I'm gonna have to get my grade maker out, but.
All right, closed session, item 6.1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, number of cases, 2. We'll be in closed session.
I have no public comment at this point. Let me finish checking. We have no public comment on Zoom.
All right, we'll go into closed session then. Unless there's objections.
Okay.
Do you guys need a break or anything?